All right, that's how it's all scored today. Let's go back to the start, which was earlier today, of course. The riders setting off on 172 kilometres from Figeac, where Paul Sherwin once started his first Tour de France there when they had a start in Figeac. The first climb of the day, the Côte de Lupiac, after 9 kilometres. De La Fuente, who got the lead in the King of the Mountains yesterday. Maximum points for him with Simon Gerrans and Igor Martinez. Slight breakaway there. Time they got to the next climb after 36 kilometres, Laurent Lefebvre was away on his own. And behind him, De La Fuente will clean up the minor points with Le Boulanger and Sandy Cassar. All climbs for the start. The third climb was Laurent Lefebvre, and then a minute and a half after that, Girouca and Riblon followed through. Then to the first sprint, Paul.
Well, at the first sprint, you can even see that Laurent Lefebvre was still in front by around about 1.5 minutes, and that was the important thing. Girouca taking up second place and Riblon in third place. The main field at this point was starting to fall quite a way behind, and then through to the next climb of the day, the climb of the Pot de Besse. Still, Laurent Lefebvre left the three chasing riders by around about a minute and a half.
And that's the situation in the Tour de France today. The helicopters are down, ready to lift the VIPs high above the riders as they head now towards Toulouse. That's the situation. Lefebvre has got the points on the Porte de la Besse. And this is the situation in the mountains. De La Fuente has kept it. Chavanel is down to second, as he has been for 2 days. Voigtler still third. Sanchez and Rico. Until today, Lefebvre hadn't scored any points, so he's still off the top 5 standings there in the polka dot jersey. Well, the racing capes are on today. We've seen 1 or 2 riders puncture with the gritty roads, and there's somebody on the right as I speak. In fact, we've had Cancellara stop with a flat tyre as well. This looks like George Hincapie to me.
Yep, big George Hincapie from Team Columbia. A little flat tyre at the side of the road, and yes, because of the weather conditions, there's a lot of rain come down overnight, and that has washed a lot of small stones onto the road, and that provokes a lot of flat tyres like this. Hincapie shouldn't have too much of a problem getting himself back into the main field. In fact, at the front end of the main field, it's been pretty much covered by the pale blue jerseys of Team Columbia, defending the overall lead of their man Kim Kirken.
Well, these are risky days for all of the riders now in the Tour de France here. George Hincapie there, if you've got to puncture, let's hope it's at a quieter time of the race. He's coming back up to the Case de Pont riders. This little group making steady progress back up towards the leaders. It looks as though Damiano Cunego, there he is, has had a problem yet again. He's got a new pair of shorts on, at least today, because he was covered in holes yesterday after his tumble. And difficult to pick out, but at least we know now he's changed his hairstyle to blonde, so we can spot him a bit easy.
Well, he's changed his hairstyle for the Tour de France this year. He has had an awful lot of bad luck, but he's a courageous rider, and he's going to battle his way through and hope to find some kind of form. And let's not forget, he has the ability to climb up quite a fair way in the overall classification field over the next few days, because we are really now starting to see the big Pyrenean giants looming on the horizon.
Well, you can see the breakaways at 5:17. This is the situation just outside our commentary box here. 61 degrees. It's really chilled down, and it's raining very heavily on the finishing line. The riders are riding towards this. They've had a few showers already, but they don't realize just how heavy it is here in Toulouse. It has been torrential as the riders of Team Columbia continue on. The number of riders still in the race, 10 have gone out now, 170. Teams intact, 11 of 20, apart from the disgraceful business concerning Beltran, who was taken out of the race yesterday. Sadly, another former Liquigas rider, and now riding for Garmin Chipotle, Magnus Bagstead, was eliminated yesterday. He finished in tears. He said he just had no power in his body.
Well, it's a tough day yesterday, Phil, because it was such a hard day of racing. The pace was extremely high, and he got caught out and was unable to finish inside of the time limit. Just to stress once again, there is a different time limit on every stage of the Tour de France, a percentage of the winner's time within which you have to finish to stay in the bike race, and sadly big Maggie Bagstad finished outside of that percentage.
Just over the top of the Porte de la Besse for the main field at 5 minutes 41 seconds. There is the lone leader, Laurent Lefebvre. He is being chased by Amit Girouca of Euskaltel-Euskadi, Christophe Riblon, and his teammate Jerome Pino. So there are 4 riders trying to reach him, but at the moment he is having the whole of the Route du Tour de France to himself.
think the team manager's coming up alongside here to give him a little bit of information. Now that they've pulled ahead of the main field to 5:40, I think he's going to actually wait for his teammates behind Phil, who have been hovering at 1.5 minutes for quite some time.
It would certainly make sense. But Lefebvre, who's winning all of the King of the Mountain points at the moment, I think you're right, Paul. I think he'll slow down just enough to allow Zeruka, Riblon and Pinot up to him to put 4 in the lead. This, though, is a race for green today. Rain today on today's stage of the Tour de France. There's the peloton pegged at 5 3/4 minutes. And these are the 3 chasers here, steadily but surely catching up with Laurent Lefebvre. Jerome Pinot, Lefebvre's Bouygues Telecom French teammate, is also working hard here because he knows that his man up front needs a little bit of help right now. And there is the peloton, all under the escort of the American team Columbia, as they now look after their leader there in yellow. All very regular at the moment, but this is a dangerous day in the Tour with rain like this. Thankfully, we don't have the horrible descents of yesterday. Had it rained yesterday, who knows? There's the names of the riders we've got the pulse on today. We'll know what they're feeling like. At least the body clocks are telling us. Coyo, Foster's a sprinter, Ronnie Schultz. Those are the riders we'll be hearing from as we go along. Remember, plenty of games for you to enjoy playing with us this year, and I must say you're all taking part. Thank you all for that. Let's remind you first of all then of the Saab Watch and Win sweepstakes. You just go on to versus.com/fly to the finish. Enjoy this game, by the way, because there are great prizes. The Saab 9.3 Sport Combi, a Cervelo SLC SL bike, polka dot jersey, a yellow jersey, all up for grabs. The words you need today, the code words, Jet Inspired. That's what you need when you log on to Versus. The bunch of the 3 chasers, and there is the lone leader. We're going to have 4 together very shortly now. They're coming together, 4 riders shortly to be in the lead, and then they're going to face off against a 5-minute gap with 89 kilometers to go. Now, the major climbs of the day, and there haven't been major climbs, there have been ripples in the countryside, are more or less behind the riders now. Flattish roads, we don't go much above 500-600 feet, a couple hundred meters above sea level, all the way to Toulouse. But I'm afraid the sea will feel as though it's on top of the riders today, because this rain is not forecast to stop. It is in fact forecast to get worse.
Well, once the riders have been through the feeding station, they drop down a little bit more for about 10 kilometers or so into the small town of Gaillac, which is renowned for its wines, and then from then on 116 kilometers in the town of Gaillac to the finish, Phil. It's pretty much flat apart from 1 or 2 little pimples towards the end, just on the outskirts of Toulouse.
Well, there's the peloton. The thing about cycle racing is almost never cancelled because of the weather. The obvious weather is snow, because they can't race through snow, but other than that, they will attempt to complete the course. And down there, the job of the professional cyclist now, the domestique, the kitchen helper to look after yellow. It's being done by Adam Hansen at the moment, then Bernard Eisel, Marcus Burkhardt. The rider here wants to go back and have a chat with the car behind. This is Hubert Dupont of France. He's a newcomer in the Tour. Now he's getting to feel just how tough this race really is. One of the riders from Luxembourg, its champion, Frank Schleck.
Well, Frank Schleck, brother of Andy Schleck, and both, in fact, all of the Luxembourg riders in the Tour de France here, Phil, come from pretty much cycling hierarchies, because the Schleck brothers, their father raced in the Tour de France and their uncle raced in the Tour de France. But I was also reading this morning, in fact, Kim Kirkland's uncle finished 5th in the Tour de France on 2 occasions, so he too comes from a fairly well-known cycling family.
Well, it's only a small country, it's landlocked, and they're very proud when their inhabitants do rather well in the world. And I must say that it's taken 50 years since Charlie Gaulle wore the maillot jaune in the Tour de France in 1958 to find another leader from Luxembourg. And Kim really is flying the flag high, because he's riding superbly.
And what is amazing is we've got 3 exceptionally good riders from Luxembourg in the Tour de France this year, and in that country they only have 2,500 licensed cyclists, but they're not pulling these riders back very quickly. It's just 21 seconds. They will get caught, I'm convinced of that, because you can start to see the way these 2 riders are pedaling. The fatigue is creeping into their bones because of the weather conditions, because of the distance they've been at the front of the race.
6 kilometers to go to the finish, 21 seconds the gap. You've got to take your hats off to these 2 today. They have ridden absolutely superbly. You can see how fast that bunch is chasing. It's not quite apparent here, yet these boys are riding almost at the same speed. Now, to bring this race back together, it's got to happen. They didn't mean it to be this late. Our computer said the worst time would be 9 kilometres in the finish. That was clearly wrong. It didn't expect these two to show such a resistance. Now, Mark Cavendish, who won the 5th stage of this race at Châteauroux, the British rider, he will now be very anxious. Every sprinter in the Tour de France is right here as we approach the finish.
They're all thinking about victory on the stage. That's Mark Cavendish over on the right-hand side there at the end of the 3 riders in the pale blue jerseys of Team Colombia. But moving up in front there of Cavendish is the green jersey of Oscar Freire, yellow jersey, riding at the front end of the main field, Phil, to keep himself out of any kind of danger, because he doesn't want to get involved in an accident outside of 3 kilometres to go to the finish. You shouldn't have taken left there, my dear boy, because you've slipped back 30 places.
Well, the thing is, they're jumping over those little parapets around the edge of the roundabouts. There's been small men with trowels putting concrete running things around the edge of those to smooth them down all day. And I should imagine the rain has kept them a little bit wet. Here we are now, 5 kilometres to go, 9 seconds, it's all over, desperate as it is.
Well,
9 seconds looks a long way, though.
It looks an awful long way. It's around about 100 metres the advantage, but they've got 4 kilometres now, Phil, of fairly straight roads with 1 or 2 slightly sweeping bends, but there's a nasty right-hander at 1 kilometre to go, and that's where it's going to get just a little.
They're on him, and it looks like Adam Hansen has shut it down, but no, it's not Adam, it's probably Marcus Berghout. But the field is right on them. 121 kilometres they've been in front, and they're still in front, but there just happens to be now 165 other guys right on their back wheel. But still Team Colombia, they've got 3 leaders' jerseys on that squad, apart from the sprinting ability of Mark Cavendish, and they've still got the head of the race.
Well, the man on the front now is Bernard Eisel, all over his machine. Right behind him you can see Marcus Berghout. Behind him it's George Hincapie. Well, in fact it isn't, because in front of him is Thomas Lofquist in the white jersey, the best young rider. This is the big train that Mark Cavendish said, with a train like this I can do nothing but win for my men, and he has got one of the best lead-out trains in the world at the moment.
Well, Eisel on the front here, he's a sprinter himself. The little flick there, I've had mine, says Bernard Eisel. He's gone now as they start to slip down. I think it's Cholik got the head of affairs now, ahead of Lofquist. The yellow jersey of Kim Kirken, who also leads the green on points, is locked in there as well. This is going to be, it could be that Kirken in yellow will lead Cavendish to the final sprint line.
Well, I tell you what, Eric Zabel is not too far away. He's got himself now to the back wheel of George Hincapie. Behind him there you can see Kirken. Behind Kirken is Mark Cavendish. In fact, it's Cholik is behind him, and there is Cavendish just in 3rd position behind the yellow jersey, looking for the good lead out from his man. There you can see Cavendish just popping out. On his wheel is Gert Stegemans. The sprinters are all queuing up now behind Team Colombia.
Well, the face of George Hincapie just peeping into our picture here, but it's the rider just behind and not far away from Robbie Hunter of South Africa. Mark Cavendish is there. There's a push on the outside, though. All of the sprinters, for the first time, I think, really fancy their chances today as they race into Toulouse. Look how they're fanning now as they all try to find their own way. At 2 kilometres off the front, and Team Colombia now are having to shed some men.
Well, Robbie McEwen zigzagging in the middle, waiting to see which side the door is going to open. There's a line of white-clad riders over on the right-hand side there. Those were the guys from Quick-Step. They'll be looking after their man, Gert Stegemans. I haven't seen anything of Thor Hushoff for the moment. I'm sure he's absolutely there. It's, in fact, Quick-Step now have taken up the pacemaking on the front. 3rd in the line there is big Gert Stegemans, normally known as a lead-out man for Tom Boonen, but he knows how to win stages of the Tour de France himself. High road now, Phil, have lost a little bit of control at the front end of the main field, and that makes it precarious.
Well, that means now that Mark Cavendish may have to switch teams here and start following the riders from Belgium in the Quick-Step colours of white and blue. Robert Foster is forced into the way too with Team Gerolsteiner. They are the lighter blue colours. It may be all going a little bit pear-shaped for Cavendish at this moment. He's going to now watch this bend. This is the one where it could all go wrong as they gently make the corner. The middle of the bunch has had to slow right down here now, which means it's only the riders in the first 30 now who have any hope at all.
It's a long way to go, because there is the red kite. 1,000 metres to go, and there was everybody got around round there nice and safely. Still Team Quick-Step pretty much in control. Up into fourth position there is Oscar Freire. Most of the sprinters got round nice and safely. We had to get out of the road at this point because we need to make sure that this race is nice and safe for the sprinters. Still in control. Quick-Step not too far away. Peeking round every now and again is Mark Cavendish, Oscar Freire, Eric Zabel. They're all there. Robbie Hunter in the red as well.
Well, there's Cavendish in the light blue. He's a little bit far back, but he does have a terrific finish if he gets a good view of that finish. And as they try to lead Stegmans to the line here now, Freire is third wheel. Cavendish is sixth place at the moment, but this man does pack an incredible finish. Cavendish needs to break now as Stegmans gets the perfect lead out. Freire is looking hot. Robbie Hunter coming in the red. Stegmans goes now. Here comes Mark Cavendish. He swings to the left. He kicks. Mark Cavendish so quick over this last distance. As Cavendish races towards the line, he gets it. That is unbelievable. He has got his second win of the Tour de France to equal the two he got in the Giro d'Italia.
Well, Mark Cavendish is proving unbeatable at the moment in the results at the end of the sprint. He has got such an incredible turn of speed. His team had complete control until around about 2 kilometers to go, and then they lost control, but he was still able to do it himself.
So let's have a look at that again, Paul, because he comes from the far right. He laid back so far off his line there, but just how quick is this kid?
That's unbelievable. Just check that out there. Just looking across, you can see Oscar Freire battling to stay up there in contact, and I think it may well be that Team Colombia there, Phil, got first and second, because I think Cholik has gone across the line in second place. Now, that is pretty remarkable.
Well, that is remarkable, but I have to say that there is no stopping this young man here. He's ever so casual when you talk to him, but after a lead out like that team gave him, he was not going to let them down. A second stage win for Mark Cavendish.
And Jimmy Casper up there as well for France. But look at the face of this young man from the Isle of Man. Remarkable turn of speed, and I don't think anybody can rival this man's speed over the last 50 meters of any race now.
Well, that was an incredible sprint by Mark Cavendish. I think it's a 1-2 as well for Team Cholik, Team Colombia, rather. I'm pretty sure Gerard Cholik got second, Casper probably third. It was another big result for the team from San Luis Obispo. There's the stage results then, just over 4 hours for Mark Cavendish today to ride 127 miles. Gerard Cholik in second place, Jimmy Casper, the sprinter, good result, Agri-Turbo there third, Oscar Freire in fourth, and Robert Foster, the German sprinter, crossing the line in fifth place. Eric Zabel still well up in the sprint in sixth. Stegmans, who thought he had that, he certainly delivered to the line by his team, but fell back to seventh. Sebastian Chavanel, the Français de Jeu sprinter, eighth. Tor Hushoff only ninth. Not a good result for Tor, that. Robbie Hunter of South Africa completing the top 10 of sprinters. And then we start to look at the men who were helping them to get there. Ferrier was helping Casper. Renshaw was helping Hushoff as we get down the list there. Julian Dean from the Garmin-Chipotle team getting over in 19th place. Robin McEwen only 17th for Robbie. Nothing but himself to blame. He was in the right position, I feel. Leonardo Duque, who punctured just outside of town, still got up there to finish in 18th place. It is the second Sunday of 4. The question now is, will the Col d'Aspin separate Kim Kirken from his yellow jersey? This is the Finnish town of Bagnes de Bigorre. It's 139 miles round trip from Toulouse. So we'll just show you how they rolled out from Toulouse this morning under heavy clouds, but sun promised, and a long way today, over 140 miles. Kim Kirken in the yellow jersey, contemplating what might lie ahead. Very quickly, though, 3 riders out in front. Alexander Kudzinski, Nicolas Jalabert, Sebastian Lang building a big lead. By the first climb at Saint-Pé, it was Lang going through ahead of Kudzinski and Jalabert as they continued over the small foothills, climbing towards the Pyrenees. At 46 kilometers into the day, the same order again. Lang winning at this time ahead of Jalabert and Kudzinski. The peloton were at 13.5 minutes now.
Not too worried at all as they went through the next 4th category climb of the day, and it was still Lang getting himself maximum points there, but this time ahead of Jalabert and Kudzinski in that order. But behind Phil, the main field are now starting to take this breakaway seriously. That leading group of 3 riders built themselves a lead of 14.5 minutes. It's now on the way down because of the men in orange, but not from Holland, from the Basque Country.
170, only 10 riders shed in this race, most of those with injuries in the first week of the Tour de France. So 170 men bound for the Pyrenees today. Not surprised to see this. Euskaltel Euskadi are showing the colours off now, largely to their own fans from over them their hills, because the town of Bagnères last night was full of Spanish people coming for a great day out.
Well, they're going to come for 3 great days out, I think, Phil, because the Spanish supporters come all the way down here, because for them this really is the terrain where they can come and support their great Tour de France riders. And the team that they really like to support, of course, is Euskaltel Euskadi. It's the Basque team, sponsored by the Basque telephone company. And when you get to the a little bit later on, you're going to see
Really is one of the riders from Luxembourg, its champion, Frank Schleck.
Well, Frank Schleck, brother of Andy Schleck, and both, in fact, all of the Luxembourg riders in the Tour de France here, Phil, come from pretty much cycling hierarchies, because the Schleck brothers, their father raced in the Tour de France and their uncle raced in the Tour de France. But I was also reading this morning, in fact, Kim Kirkland's uncle finished 5th in the Tour de France on 2 occasions, so he too comes from a fairly well-known cycling family.
Well, it's only a small country, it's landlocked, and they're very proud when their inhabitants do rather well in the world. And I must say that it's taken 50 years since Charlie Gore wore the maillot jaune in the Tour de France in 1958 to find another leader from Luxembourg. And Kim really is flying the flag high, because he's riding superbly.
And what is amazing is we've got 3 exceptionally good riders from Luxembourg in the Tour de France this year, and in that country they only have 2,500 licensed cyclists, but they're not pulling these riders back very quickly. It's just 21 seconds. They will get caught, I'm convinced of that, because you can start to see the way these 2 riders are pedaling. The fatigue is creeping into their bones because of the weather conditions, because of the distance they've been at the front of the race.
6 kilometres to go to the finish, 21 seconds the gap. You've got to take your hats off to these 2 today. They have ridden absolutely superbly. You can see how fast that bunch is chasing. It's not quite apparent here, yet these boys are riding almost at the same speed. Now, to bring this race back together, it's got to happen. They didn't mean it to be this late. Our computer said the worst time would be 9 kilometres from the finish. That was clearly wrong. It didn't expect these 2 to show such a resistance. Now, Mark Cavendish, who won the 5th stage of this race at Châteauroux, the British rider, he will now be very anxious. Every sprinter in the Tour de France is right here as we approach the finish.
They're all thinking about victory on the stage. That's Mark Cavendish over on the right-hand side there at the end of the 3 riders in the pale blue jerseys of Team Columbia. But moving up in front there of Cavendish is the green jersey of Oscar Freire, yellow jersey, riding at the front end of the main field, Phil, to keep himself out of any kind of danger, because he doesn't want to get involved in an accident outside of 3 kilometres to go to the finish. You shouldn't have taken left there, my dear boy, because you've slipped back 30 places.
Well, the thing is, they're jumping over those little parapets around the edge of the roundabouts. There's been small men with trowels putting concrete running things around the edge of those to smooth them down all day. And I should imagine the rain has kept them a little bit wet. Here we are now, 5 kilometres to go, 9 seconds, it's all over, desperate as it is. Well, 9 seconds looks a long way, though.
It looks an awful long way. It's around about 100 metres the advantage, but they've got 4 kilometres now, Phil, of fairly straight roads with 1 or 2 slightly sweeping bends, but there's a nasty right-hander at 1 kilometre to go, and that's where it's going to get just a little.
They're on him, and it looks like Adam Hansen has shut it down, but no, it's not Adam, it's probably Marcus Berghout. But the field is right on them. 121 kilometres they've been in front, and they're still in front, but there just happens to be now 165 other guys right on their back wheel. But still Team Columbia, they've got 3 leaders' jerseys on that squad, apart from the sprinting ability of Mark Cavendish, and they've still got the head of the race.
Well, the man on the front now is Bernard Eisel, all over his machine. Right behind him you can see Marcus Berghout. Behind him it's George Hincapie. Well, in fact it isn't, because in front of him is Thomas Lofquist in the white jersey, the best young rider. This is the big train that Mark Cavendish said, with a train like this I can do nothing but win for my men, and he has got one of the best lead-out trains in the world. at the moment.
Well, Eisel on the front here. He's a sprinter himself. The little flick there, I've had mine, says Bernard Eisel. He's gone now as they start to slip down. I think it's Cholik got the head of affairs now, ahead of Lockquist. The yellow jersey of Kim Kirken, who also leads the green on points, is locked in there as well. This is going to be, it could be that Kirken in yellow will lead Cavendish to the final sprint line.
Well, I tell you what, Eric Zabel is not too far away. He's got himself now to the back wheel of George Hincapie. Behind him there you can see Kirken. Behind Kirken is Mark Cavendish. In fact, it's Cholik is behind him, and there is Cavendish just in third position behind the yellow jersey, looking for the good lead out from his man. There you can see Cavendish just popping out. On his wheel is Gert Stegemans. The sprinters are all queuing up now behind Team Columbia.
Well, the face of George Hincapie just peeping into our picture here, but it's the rider just behind and not far away from Robbie Hunter of South Africa. Mark Cavendish is there. There's a push on the outside, though. All of the sprinters, for the first time, I think, really fancy their chances today as they race into Toulouse. Look how they're fanning now as they all try to find their own way. 2 kilometres off the front, and Team Columbia now are having to shed some men.
Well, Robbie McEwen zigzagging in the middle, waiting to see which side the door is going to open. There's a line of white-clad riders over on the right-hand side there. Those were the guys from Quick-Step. They'll be looking after their man, Gert Stegemans. I haven't seen anything of Thor Hushoff for the moment. I'm sure he's absolutely there. It's, in fact, Quick-Step now have taken up the pacemaking on the front. Third in the line there is big Gert Stegemans, normally known as a lead-out man for Tom Boonen, but he knows how to win stages of the Tour de France himself. High road now, Philip, lost a little bit of control at the front end of the main field, and that makes it precarious.
Well, that means now that Mark Cavendish may have to switch teams here and start following the riders from Belgium in the Quick-Step colours of white and blue. Robert Foster is forced into the way too with Team Gerolsteiner. They are the lighter blue colours. It may be all going a little bit pear-shaped for Cavendish at this moment. He's going to now watch this bend. This is the one where it could all go wrong as they gently make the corner. The middle of the bunch has had to slow right down here now, which means it's only the riders in the first 30 now who have any hope at all.
It's a long way to go because there is the red kite, 1,000 metres to go, and everybody got around there nice and safely. Still Team Quick-Step pretty much in control. Up into fourth position there is Oscar Freire. Most of the sprinters got around nice and safely. We had to get out of the road at this point because we need to make sure that this race is nice and safe for the sprinters. Still in control. Quick-Step not too far away. Peeking round every now and again is Mark Cavendish, Oscar Freire, Eric Zabel. They're all there. Robbie Hunter in the red as well.
Well, there's Cavendish in the light blue. He's a little bit far back, but he does have a terrific finish if he gets a good view of that finish. And as they try to lead Stegmans to the line here now, Freire is third wheel. Cavendish is sixth place at the moment, but this man does pack an incredible finish. Cavendish needs to break now as Stegmans gets the perfect lead out. Freire is looking hot. Robbie Hunter coming in the red. Stegmans goes now. Here comes Mark Cavendish. He swings to the left. He kicks. Mark Cavendish so quick over this last distance. As Cavendish races towards the line, he gets it. That is unbelievable. He has got his second win of the Tour de France to equal the 2 he got in the Giro d'Italia.
Well, Mark Cavendish is proving unbeatable at the moment in the results at the end of the sprint. He has got such an incredible turn of speed. His team had complete control until around about 2 kilometres to go, and then they lost control, but he was still able to do it himself.
So let's have a look at that again, Paul, because he comes from the far right. He laid back so far off his line there, but just how quick is this kid?
That's unbelievable. Just check that out there. Just looking across, you can see Oscar Freire battling to stay up there in contact, and I think it may well be that Team Columbia there, Phil, got first and second, because I think Cholik has gone across the line in second place. Now, that is pretty remarkable.
Well, that is remarkable, but I have to say that there is no stopping this young man here. He's ever so casual when you talk to him, but after a lead-out like that team gave him, he was not going to let them down. A second stage win for Mark Cavendish.
And Jimmy Casper up there as well for France, but look at the face of this young man from the Isle of Man. Remarkable turn of speed, and I don't think anybody can rival this man's speed over the last 50 metres of any race now.
Well, that was an incredible sprint by Mark Cavendish. I think it's a 1-2 as well for Team Cholik, Team Columbia, rather. I'm pretty sure Gerard Cholik got second, Casper probably third. It was another big result for the team from San Luis Obispo. There's the stage results then, just over 4 hours for Mark Cavendish today to ride 127 miles. Gerard Cholik in second place. Jimmy Casper, the sprinter, good result. Agri-Turbal there third. Oscar Freire in fourth. And Robert Foster, the German sprinter, crossing the line in fifth place. Eric Zabel still well up in the sprint in sixth. Stegmans, who thought he had that, he certainly delivered to the line by his team, but fell back to seventh. Sebastian Chavanel, the Francais de Jeu sprinter, eighth. Tor Hushoff only ninth. Not a good result for Tor, that. Robbie Hunter of South Africa completing the top 10 of sprinters. And then we start to look at the men who were helping them to get there. Failure was helping Casper. Renshaw was helping Hushoff as we get down the list there. Julian Dean from the Garmin-Chipotle team getting over in 19th place. Robin McEwen only 17th for Robbie. Nothing but himself to blame. He was in the right position, I feel. Leonardo Duque, who punctured just outside of town, still got up there to finish in 18th place. It is the second Sunday of 4. The question now is, will the Col d'Aspin separate Kim Kirken from his yellow jersey? This is the Finnish town of Bagnères de Bigorre. It's 139 miles round trip from Toulouse. So we'll just show you how they rolled out from Toulouse this morning under heavy clouds, but sun promised, and a long way today, over 140 miles. Kim Kirken in the yellow jersey, contemplating what might lie ahead. Very quickly, though, 3 riders out in front. Alexander Kudzinski, Nicolas Jalabert, Sebastian Lang building a big lead. By the first climb at Saint-Pé, it was Lang going through ahead of Kudzinski and Jalabert as they continued over the small foothills, climbing towards the Pyrenees. At 46 kilometres into the day, the same order again. Lang winning at this time ahead of Jalabert and Kudzinski. The peloton were at 13.5 minutes now.
Not too worried at all as they went through the next 4th category climb of the day, and it was still Lang getting himself maximum points there, but this time ahead of Jalabert and Kudzinski in that order. But behind Phil, the main field, are now starting to take this breakaway seriously. That leading group of 3 riders built themselves a lead of 14.5 minutes. It's now on the way down because of the men in orange, but not from Holland, from the Basque Country.
170, only 10 riders shed in this race, most of those with injuries in the first week of the Tour de France. So 170 men bound for the Pyrenees today. Not surprised to see this. Euskaltel Euskadi are showing the colours off now, largely to their own fans from over them their hills, because the town of Bagnères last night was full of Spanish people coming for a great day out.
Well, they're going to come for 3 great days out, I think, Phil, because the Spanish supporters come all the way down here, because for them this really is the terrain where they can come and support their great Tour de France riders. And the team that they really like to support, of course, is Euskaltel Euskadi. It's the Basque team, sponsored by the Basque telephone company, and when you get to the a little bit later on, you're going to see that the majority of spectators are clad in orange.
Well, these are the leaders. Alexander Kudzinski in only his 2nd tour, Sebastian Lang, who is riding his 4th tour, and Nicolas Jalabert, who, believe it or not, Paul, is riding his 10th Tour de France. The workload fairly evenly shed, but Lang is doing more work than most. He's won all of the small climbs, so he's got 9 points now in the King of the Mountains. Still a long way from that polka dot jersey.
They went out very rapidly this morning. 45 kilometres an hour covered in the first hour of racing, slowing down to 41 kilometres an hour in the 2nd hour of racing. But however, the profile certainly does not favour these men, Phil, because it's very hilly towards the
3rd category climb. We're approaching the summit here of the Col des Arts, which takes us 100 kilometres from the finishing line today. And again, nobody going to challenge Sebastian Lang, which means he's now got 16 points in the King of the Mountains today. And he's hoping if he can survive over the next big 2, he'll be the next leader. We'll see. Kudzinski following him over, and Nicolas Jalabert. And it takes up to 5,100 feet plus on the Col de Peyresourde. The Col d'Aspin, you can see, is nearly 8 miles long. That'll take us up to 4,800, and then it's all eyes down for the big finish. The peloton have been riding very, very hard today. They're all under the escort, though, of the orange-clad boys from Euskaltel on this year, but it hasn't quite had the look yet.
In fact, I thought I caught a glimpse of Robbie Hunter riding up near the front end of the main field there. He's a man who knows how to ride well in the mountains, but it depends on whichever season you're counting. Sometimes Hunter is one of the top sprinters in the world, but a couple of years ago, he really was a phenomenal climber, assisting Floyd Landis through the mountains of the Alps and the Pyrenees. These are the 3 leaders. That's Nicolas Jalabert on the front, the younger brother of Laurent Jalabert, who in fact himself is the commentator for French television.
Yes, indeed, and even Nicolas is now becoming an old Tour timer here. This is his 10th Tour de France, and so he's used to everything. He's been on all these roads before. He knows what sits ahead of him, so he's taking the riders down this descent, which is falling away from about 2,500 feet as we drop down a little way, always getting closer to the giants of the area here. We get to the top of the Col de Père de Sorbe, 58 kilometers to go, so we're going to start at around 42 kilometers. 71 kilometers, so we're about 20 kilometers or so from the start of the Col de Père de Sorbe. They'll probably still be away at that time, but by how much, that's the big question.
That is the big question, because I really do believe that looking at these riders and knowing their abilities when it comes to the big mountain stages, I can see them losing 5 or 6 minutes on at least the one climb, the Col de Père de Sorbe, and then another 4 or 5 minutes on the climb of the Col Green jersey. Now this looks a little bit like Samy Dumoulin trying to get clear. Now that is a little bit of a shock to me.
Well, it was a shock when he won the stage too, down in Nantes, I think he was, as we all watched him escape with great success there, and now he's on his way again. It's a good move in many ways, because they need to steal a lead before we get. In fact, was he just going for the sprint? He was. Well, that's going to upset David de la Fuente. He got 1 point for that.
Well, the reason was he wanted to steal the points away from David de la Fuente, because his teammate, of course, Sylvain Chavanel, is in second place in that competition, so that's why he leapt out of the pack. I don't think he's going to try and ride across an almost 11-minute gap.
Well, he's already a hero in France after his stage win, and we'll see. Time will tell, as we always say. 91.8 kilometers is the gap, 10:15. Paul, he's gone away here.
Well, not a clever tactical move, but you can see immediately he's covered there by a rider from Agri-Toubel, and that will be to make sure that he protects the position of Nicolas Jalabert in the front. I'm not quite sure that this is a sensible move myself, especially when you're on the eve of 3 days in the mountains, separated by a rest day.
For anybody going slowly on a bicycle, is it not, with all this help we have now from the equipment and the clothing? There's the peloton in very angry mood today. They are flying just now as they try to reduce that gap. It's not coming down very quickly, which says a lot for the speed of those three leaders as they try to get up now to the base of the Col de Père de Sorbe. 10 minutes 4 seconds, a little bit of reduction for the peloton now. Somewhere in between is Samuel Dumoulin and Romain Feliu. 87 kilometers to go, which puts us about 16 kilometers now from the belly of the Pyrenees here, and the way in is through or over the Col de Père de Sorbe. First category climb, 13 kilometers long, a gradient of 7.1, takes us up to 1,500 meters or more, and the kilometers to go when you hit the top, still 57 to ride, and it's already having its toll. The field is splitting up. In fact, Nicolas Jalabert has just been dropped by the leading three riders as well, and there's a lot of riders gone off the back. Well, I'll tell you, we've noticed one man is still up in that group, and that's Danny Pate of Garmin-Chipotle, looking very good actually. Only two riders left up here, and still Lang hanging in, distant thoughts of a polka dot jersey if he can get over the top of this climb and get the maximum points. The peloton, once 167 strong, is looking a bit thinner.
I don't think is in the place that he wants to be. Sebastian Lang is just ticking away there. He's a great rider against the clock, a former national time trial champion of Germany. Sorry about the little bit of picture breakup, but here's the first move of the day, and this looks like Felix Cardenas.
This is Barlow World, South African team here, and this is Felix Cardenas. Remember that now that they lost their main contender for the King of the Mountains, the winner of the title, really, they lost him on day one with a very nasty crash. It took him a couple of days to retire with an injured left wrist, but Juan Mauricio Soler went out very early on. The team had to recover from a very nasty blow there, and Felix Cardenas now is their man for the mountains. He is a great climber. He's a King of the Mountains title holder, but not in the Tour de France, and he's accelerated.
Well, he's accelerated at the front end of the main field, and Sebastian Lang is accelerated in the breakaway group now, so he's riding off to a lone lead. He knows that there are a maximum number of 15 points at the top of this climb, and he's, I think, trying to garner a lead in the King of the Mountains classification, and he realizes that. And this face that he's pulling here just gives you the indication, Phil, of how tough these climbs are. Yeah. And I'm sorry to be the one to tell Sebastian Lang that 170 beats a minute, he's really creeping up to almost almost the red zone. His cadence is right down as well at 78. Normally, when you're riding a time trial, your cadence is up around about 90 to 100 revolutions a minute. That's if your name's Lance Armstrong. But as you can see, he's using a big gear to pedal at 78 revolutions a minute.
He's in the yellow, next up the red zone. But it's to be expected. These riders have a habit of making it look rather easy, but it most certainly is not. And the face here of Felix Cardenas, a pure climber, fast tempo riding, comfortable position on his bike. When he feels the pace slowing, he jumps out the saddle, accelerates again, then sits down. The thing about climbing is you haven't got the ability to match other people's speed. You've really got to climb for yourself into as what we call the auto goose. As we head up towards the summit now, Sebastian Lang gets the 15 points. He moves up into second place in the King of the Mountains. But I don't think he'll get first today, because behind, De La Fuente is countering the move.
Well, De La Fuente is looking to make sure he defends his position as leader of the King of the Mountains classification. Sebastian Langen now has got a little bit of respiteful as he goes over the summit of the high spot of the day at just inside of 1,600 meters. And now he can face up to around about a 20-kilometer descent into the town of Haro. And unfortunately for him, once he goes across the town square, it goes back uphill again.
And that 20 kilometers, he'll go down in around about 15 minutes, as fast as any car could do it, or not probably even faster on these twisty roads. Second over is Kuzinski, his breakaway partner. I would think they'll probably get together on the way down, Paul.
Well, they may well do. It depends on whether or not Kuzinski's got any reserves left. This is the descent of the Col de Peresord, and as you can see, to begin with, it is a very rapid descent indeed. These are sweeping bends where you don't even have to touch your brakes. You can probably expect one of these professional riders to be touching in excess of 100 kilometers an hour on a descent like this, and this man will know that. He's not even pedaling. He's getting down into this rather dangerous aerodynamic position. Not a position that you should try and adopt at home if you've got your own bicycle out, because it's not exceptionally maneuverable.
No, he's locked in there. He's shaking his head. He can't believe he's just won the major climb so far in the Tour de France. He's not a climber, you know, but he's gone over the top first, and it must be a lovely feeling to descend at about 70 or 80 kilometers an hour, knowing that everybody else is still climbing at between 12 and 16 kilometers an hour. 5:40 he's conserved. He's only lost about 3.5 minutes on that climb to the main climbers at the moment.
Look at the face of David De La Fuente. You know, this man is pulling himself inside out here, Phil, for the King of the Mountains classification. He started the day with the lead on his shoulders, a very slim lead over a Frenchman called Sylvain Chavanel. Today he's seen that lead challenged, and he's battling. He's really killing himself to stay in contact here with Maxime Montfort. And I have to say, Montfort is turning out to be quite a revelation of the Tour de France this year.
Well, at the moment, Fuente is probably challenging for 4th place up the climb. If he does, he'll get 9 points. That will keep him well in the lead, because Lang took 15 but started the day with nothing. He's now picked up 31, and De La Fuente's got 34, so he's still got the lead at the moment. That's why it's worth suffering just now, because these are the real mountains of the Tour de France. There's no pretenders now to wearing that polka dot jersey. He's got to earn it, and if he does get points on the Col de Peresord, then he's in serious intent. 1 kilometer to go. There's the race leader, Kim Kirken of Luxembourg. He rides on the American team Columbia. He's lost most of his teammates on this climb, but he is still in there, and he's riding pretty solid. And right there at the back is Trent Lowe, the Australian, who's having a superb Tour de France. He's an ex-mountain biker, and he's right there in a very select group of everything. This is back with the leader now. Boy, he's enjoying this one. He's absolutely flying down this mountain.
Well, this is really when you've got to adopt the position of a ski racer. You've got to get yourself as aerodynamic as possible, but you've also got to then make yourself as maneuverable as possible when you come to these corners and the changes in directions. Out of the saddle, up to wheel at the back there, was the cars trying to stay in contact with Sebastian Lang. And for a car on a motorbike, this is De La Fuente. He's looking for 4th place and presuming that Nicolas Jalabert hasn't been caught, so 4th place for him, and he will keep his lead comfortably, Phil, now in the King of the Mountains classification.
Yes, he lives to wear that jersey for another day tomorrow in the mountains, when we finish on top of Otakam, high above the city of Lourdes. He missed his newspaper there, and he wants that for up his jersey to stop the cold wind going through his chest. They're always afraid of a bronchitis setting in. It's quite chilly up here today. It's only around 10 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Here's a reaction. This is Luis Sanchez also trying to grab some points. Is he off on an escapade as well here? Might be an attack.
I don't think this is trying to get some points. I've got a funny feeling that Luis Leon Sanchez is trying to ride himself back into this bike race, because he's a man who we've always regarded as a star of the future, and a move by Sanchez on a day like this will put an awful lot of pressure on everybody else in the bike race. They will be obliged now, Phil, to come out and chase him.
Well, it's a good time to make a move, because the field are preoccupied now, preparing for the descent. While if he pushes on, he may have to ride pretty hard on the Aspan, but he will have to ride pretty hard on the Aspan, but he might get his gain on the way downhill. That's often the way to go. We'll see. As they continue back with the leader here, Sebastian Lang of Germany and Team Gerolsteiner making a very quick descent away from the Col de Peyresourde as he heads towards the climb of the Col d'Aspan, and that is the last climb before the finish in Bagnères de Bigorre. Just tried to catch a look at that. It looked 60 kilometres now, I think it was, behind these two riders here as they continue the descent. This is De La Fuente, followed by Maxime Montfort. De La Fuente is showing us how you fight when you get a leader's jersey. He was a great bike rider, wasn't he? Okay, back to the current Tour de France and modern day racing now as we head off the Col de Peyresourde. So as we run down the mountain now, still high-speed stuff. They need to use those brakes occasionally to lock on as we turn back on ourselves through these trees. And if you look over the left shoulder, Paul, oh, they can't see anybody. They've already gone through.
Well, they've just about got to the...
I beg your pardon, we're going straight on here.
Just about got to the descent, Phil, of the Col de Peyresourde. They are not too far away from the outskirts of the town of Haro. Cross the bottom of the town, go out of town and take a left-hand turn, and that will be the start of the Col d'Aspan. The interesting thing about Haro, by the way, it's one of the staging points on the pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela.
Well, it's also in the department known as the High Pyrenees, as if the riders need reminding that today. 5.5 minutes is the gap, and Sebastian Lang is absolutely doing a stormer today, indicating just how strong he is. He's the teammate, by the way, of Stefan Schumacher, the rider who lost his yellow jersey in that unfortunate crash on Superbest. 45.3 kilometres left to go, or that converts to 28 miles. As the chase continues, 36 seconds to the second rider on the road, that's Alexander Kuzinski. We're going to take ones tomorrow, the Col de Tourmalet and the Haut-de-Gamme. They're not as high as those giants, but they're a lovely hors d'oeuvre today, and we're seeing a big attack chance being taken by Sebastian Lang. 4 riders have grouped up behind. Well, they were grouped up behind. It looks as though Jalabert is now in trouble as he gets unhitched here from the chase group, which leaves Sanchez, Montfort, De La Fuente pushing on. Well, I think that was to be expected with Nicolas Jalabert. He was in trouble on the Peyresourde, and he's been in trouble there. And in the background, the flag of Australia here. They'll have to wait to see Cadel Evans, because this is the leader on the road now. Cadel himself has been in trouble today. The blood should be drying a little bit now. The doctors patched him up as best they can. He doesn't seem injured, apart from the obvious, and so let's hope he can be okay.
Well, in fact, they're the men from Holland, because they're the men of orange, and those are from the northern parts of Europe. Schumacher now moves.
Well, this is interesting, because he's got a teammate up there, and he's going to cause a reaction from the field here. As this is Stefan Schumacher, still interested in taking back the jersey. We thought he might have been the leader and lost it, but he's now going clear here, and he's caused a reaction from the field as well. Agri Tobel has sent up a rider.
Well, that's an interesting move by Schumacher, because they've got the possibility here, Phil, of winning the stage, but he, for 16 seconds, is looking to try and get himself the overall lead. He's only 16 seconds adrift at the start of the day, but what this causes is a little bit of anguish.
Well, that rider is Eduardo Gonzalo. There's nobody else on the team can climb like him. He's gone up alongside Schumacher, one of the young riders in the race on the French squad, which is new, the Spanish rider on the French team, but he's up there setting the...
Immediately by Ricardo Rico, the man whose nickname is the Cobra, because he strikes first, and he's striking now.
Well, off the back goes Fabien Cancellara, the world champion, and the pressure now gone on at the front. This is Rico, and he's got behind him his best mate, Pipoli.
Well, Rico said a couple of days ago, Phil, after he got himself the victory at Superbest, he says, what I want to do now is try and help my own teammate, Leonardo Pipoli, get a victory. These men are great climbers. There's going to be a lot of alarm bells ringing here.
We are about 7 kilometres from the summit with the peloton here. There's still that lone leader up front, Sebastian Lang, but we've now seen a reaction here by the rider we always call the Cobra. That's his nickname, Ricardo Rico. He's had one stage win. He's now gone to the front. He's lifted the pace, and that lifting of the pace has caused something of panic in the back of the field.
There's a lot of pain being distributed right now, and a lot of riders going straight out of the back of this main field. This is David Moncoutier at the back. He's normally a very good climber, but obviously not enjoying his day this afternoon. Maybe waiting for tomorrow, le 14 juillet, the big holiday of France. Rico swings off, looks at his teammate Leonardo Pipoli and says, "Carry on, mate. Look at the damage we're doing."
Well, Ricardo Rico on the left of our picture there, it seems to be as comfortable as you like. It's his second Tour de France, but his first one when he's come here as a real star. Runner-up in the Tour of Italy, best white jersey there. He's now pushing on. And look at this, he's given way to Leonardo Pipoli, who unfortunately had to pull out of the Tour of Italy this year when he broke his collarbone on a descent. But look at the gaps appearing now, but look at Cunego paying attention, 5 men back.
Yes, but also look at the black and red jerseys on the front here of Silence Lotto paying attention for Cadel Evans in second wheel there, followed by a rider from Barlow World. There is the yellow jersey as well, 41 for Kim Kirk, and now here's another move coming from Case d'Epargne.
Oh, well, the Aspam was certainly decided to be the place to attack, and this is an interesting move now.
This is interesting because this is Oscar Pereiro riding off the front. Phil, I have a feeling today there's a little manoeuvre being set up here by Case d'Epargne. Don't forget in front, Luis Leon Sanchez. If this man can move forward here, Oscar Pereiro, they've then got 2 riders in front, and that would be a great launch pad for their man Alejandro Valverde. Oscar Pereiro, 9th at the start of the day.
And 1 minute 21 off the yellow jersey. They've got room to throw that jersey around the team just now, but the yellow jersey has got to react to this, and he's still in that group. There he is. Kim Kirken has gone round. Cadel Evans is here. All of a sudden that group now at the back is just hanging on for grim death, because the big riders in the Tour de France have all started to move at the front.
Well, they need to, because those were some very vicious attacks there. I presume this is in the back end of the race. There's Georgi Hincapie, number 47, once again using his experience. 13th Tour de France for George Hincapie this year, Phil.
Yep.
And of course, don't forget, he's looking in the future, in a week's, 2 weeks, 3 weeks time, at his 5th Olympic Games.
Paolo Tirolongo was with him there. He dropped off early. He's going to drop off again here now. But look at the group here. We've got Chris Froome, who is a Kenyan rider, now racing on a British licence, still in this group. And it really would have been nice if he could have been named for the Olympic Games for Britain. I think there's a technical problem over that, because he's still part of the Kenya Cycling Federation. But even so, he is in this front group right now. They say he can really climb. We're going to find out in his first Tour de France.
We're looking here at Eduardo Gonzalo from Agri-Tubel all over the front end of the main field, and there is Oscar Pereiro chasing him down. There's a lot of pain being dished out here. There is Damiano Cunego at the front end of the group in about 10th or 12th position. Looks like a little bit of a problem for Miller, yeah. And of course the best young rider too, slipping out of the back, Thomas Lovquist.
He's been in a little bit of trouble on both climbs today, Thomas. He's only a youngster. Miller also going backwards. Look at the acceleration of some of these guys here now, as the hammer has really gone down, and still bashing out the message at the front here is Gonzalo of Agri-Tubel.
Well, don't forget, Phil, that once they get to the summit of this climb, it's downhill to the finish. They all realise that they might as well race like maniacs for the next 5 or 6 kilometres. If you can go over the top with half a minute advantage, it's a very fast run-in down towards the finish, and that's what they're all banking on.
Still in the centre of the pack here, the riders. Cadel Evans sitting there, watching and waiting perhaps, but he's seeing just who is attacking. First chance you've got to see the cuts on his shorts, his elbow, his knees. He's also got a hurt collarbone, but he looks okay physically just now as the pressure continues. This is still Eduardo Gonzalo setting the pace of the front. It was his attack which has caused all these problems.
Mikel Astrolosa there moving to the front. There's another move coming from AG2R, just leaping off the front of the pack.
Well, AG2R, it might be Jose Luis Arrieta, because Cyril Dessel, if it's him, I'll be surprised. He was in desperate trouble on the climb of the Péresord. Now, who went in through the trees? This is still Gonzalo setting the pace. He's being joined now by that rider. Is it Vladimir Efekimpo? Because that would be the most obvious choice right now.
Well, there's a rider coming across from Lampre. Everybody here, Phil, this afternoon is completely and utterly throwing caution to the wind. There's also a move that's been covered there. You can see by Case d'Epargne. They are all over this, but at the front of the race, still a lone leader. Sebastian Lang has lost a couple of minutes of the advantage he had at the start of the climb, but he mustn't panic. What he's got to do is forget about the battle that's going on behind. Just get into his own rhythm. Just keep plodding along and hope that he summits with at least a minute's advantage. Then he's got a good crack at the victory.
Chase group now, I can tell you this chase group does include Christian van der Velde. He is riding very, very strongly just behind in that group there. We've got Vladimir Efekim on the right here. Gonzalo is also up here, but the group is bridging. That's something you don't want to see right now, is the gradients of the side of the Col d'Aspan as Lang now bids for goal. This is Rico on the move, straight past De La Fuente. The speed of Ricardo Rico here as he's gone straight through everybody there. I must say, he made David Arroyo look as though he was standing still, and they brought back De La Fuente as well. Everybody's throwing just about all the strength they've got left into this climb.
Well, Ricardo Rico, I think, scares everybody, Phil, with the ferocity of his attacks here, and he's just gone straight out of the front. I think they've decided not to try and follow him, because you try and follow an acceleration like this, like a Marco Pantani, and you will put yourself immediately into the red zone. So let him go, let him stabilise his lead, and then possibly try and pull him back a little bit later on.
Well, if you all get together and chase on the way down, you've got a bit of a chance, I think. This rider's only won 3 races this year, but they're 2 stages of the Tour of Italy and 1 stage of the Tour de France. He chooses well.
Well, what an explosive attack. A lot of people compare him. And look at the way he's ridden straight across that gap. He's joined Montfort on the front there in the red, Luis Leon Sanchez, and he's straight onto the back. And don't be surprised if all of a sudden he goes straight by them as he does.
Well, this is absolutely amazing riding now. Sebastian Lang is still out in front. Ricardo Rico has reached the riders immediately behind him. He's now racing for first place here, and he's got to bridge a gap of 2 minutes 45. It may be less than that, in fact.
I just noticed Luis Leon Sanchez has sat up, looked over his shoulder, and he's looking to see where's Pereira, where's Alejandro Valverde. He's going to drop back for them and see if he can assist them in the chase of this young man. But I think Rico's lost himself just a little bit too much time on the day, Phil. He started the day in 27th place overall, almost 4 minutes behind.
Well, I'm not so sure he's even thinking of yellow ball. I think he wants another stage win here, and Stefan Schumacher sat at the back here. He's played his card. Seemingly it hasn't worked. Out on his own, Sebastian Lang. Then we go back to just Ricardo Rico, who's tagging along there with Montfort.
Well, Rico said he felt he was too young to come and win the Tour de France this year. He wanted to come and learn the Tour de France. He came last year and didn't ride so well. He rode superbly in the recent Giro d'Italia, winning the 2 stages, as you mentioned, finishing second overall. All he wants out of this year's Tour is to try and get stage victories. Check that out for an attack.
That's how you make an attack. I don't know where he's got those legs from. He must have just purchased them halfway up the climb, because he absolutely is flying from the pack. A quick acceleration, nobody can follow him, straight past David De La Fuente, who was up with the leaders, and within seconds he's in amongst it, and he's now second on the road. And
that's the difference between Ricardo Rico and the lone leader Sebastian Lang. He can see him now.
Oh yes, 30 seconds, there it is for the first time. 150 is the gap to Kim Kirken in the race leader's yellow jersey in that group with everybody else. But here comes the Cobra now. He's coiling again as he starts to spring, heads up towards what is shortly going to be the top of the Aspan. And it looks as though Schumacher's big efforts there, he's paid the price. He can't answer the call of the rhythm now as he loses a bit of ground. This man is climbing, and he's climbing so quickly.
It's phenomenal, the suppleness that man has got in his legs. He's a lightly built rider. He weighs in at just around about 61 kilos. And you can see now at 17 seconds, just around the corner, having taken the switchback, is the lone leader. They're moving all the cars and all the motorbikes out of the gap. We haven't even seen Sebastian Lang yet. And when we do see him, Phil, around there he is, not very far behind him. We won't have to wait very long before we see Ricardo Rico.
This is Schumacher here losing ground, cheered on by the local club cyclists. They were actually Spanish cyclists there. Stefan Schumacher, it's his teammate though now, is in all sorts of bother. Remember that Schumacher went at 22 kilometres into the day of 224, and he's coming up to the top of the climb with just 26 left to go when he gets there. It's a bad time to be caught, Paul. He could have done with being caught just inside of the line on the summit.
Well, he's a good competitor, Sebastian Lang. He's got the ability, if he is not left behind by Ricardo Rico, to possibly catch him on the descent, because he will try and stay in contact. He's looking over his shoulder. He knows what's coming. He knows Ricardo Rico's reputation. But Rico now, Phil, has been given the freedom, I think, because he started the day 4 minutes behind in the overall classification. But all of a sudden, these guys now have got to start to look at that man sensibly, because if he pulls back a minute or a minute and a half on every mountain stage, he could become very dangerous.
I can't think they'll allow that trick to appear too often, but who knows when it's a matter of man-on-man, as it will be as we go into especially the final week of this Tour de France in the Alps. That is viciously hard. The skirmish has already begun. He's right up and right gone. He won't even give him a chance to get on his wheel, and there'll be no rise of pace from Sebastian here. And he's still just over a kilometre from the summit. The gap could be opened here into a winning gap for the Cobra.
Hardly a glance at all as he went past Sebastian Lang, and Lang just could not lift it at all, Phil. He's not a man who is going to come back to the lead of this race here this afternoon, because from the summit of this climb, we are looking at 26 kilometres downhill to the finish. And even if this young man, Ricardo Rico, is not as heavy as some of the other riders in the bike race, he will be able to go downhill at approximately 80 kilometres an hour. And if he summits with a minute and a half, I don't think they will see this man. It's all about in the mountains.
Well, there's no doubt that Ricardo Rico is going to be first over the Aspan. Then he's got 26 kilometres, about 15 and a half miles to race to the finish. The vast majority is downhill into the valley of Bagnères de Bigorre and up into the finishing straight. There's the Basque flag, but this is not a Spanish rider. This is an Italian leading the rain. We don't go there for another week or more.
Well, that's going to be absolutely crazy if Ricardo Rico can get himself a second stage victory, because the Italian tifosi that we normally see in the Giro d'Italia will go absolutely ballistic. Acceleration now at the front end of the main field, a minute and 15 seconds. They now know they can't let Ricardo Rico go too far off the front. Second place on the road now for Sebastian Lange. Third place on the road for Maxime Montfort, and the main field is actually starting to close in a fraction.
Well, let's just try and whirl Sebastian over the top, and probably into a King of the Mountains jersey. He goes over the top in second place, but he gets 26 points for that. De La Fuente will get nothing. I think he's blown lower down. So I think there's a King of the Mountains jersey for him tonight. Kreuziger, I think this is bringing up the group here now, and they're right behind. Now, there's Fuente. De La Fuente is right there. He could well save the day, as this will be Cole who's going up now to take out third place on the climb.
Well, that's the accelerations, that's the teammate. That's why the Tour de France is all about teams. He's trying to get himself a few points and steal them away for David de la Fuente, but Fuente's seen that, knows what's going on, and he now is coming straight through that crowd for Spain. He wants the King of the Mountains lead at the end of the day if he can. So around the corner, Cole is there, but so too, Phil, is David de la Fuente.
Well, De La Fuente goes over the top. He's 8 points fewer, though, than Sebastian Lang, but I really can't work it out who's got the lead. It's within a point, I guess. And there's the yellow jersey of Kim Kirkham going over the top of the climb now. So he should be safe to fight another day in this group. Also, I can see there Trent Lowe for the Garmin Chipotle team, and they've also had a great ride here. This is a group now which should all get together on the way down as we now race for the big prize of the day, and the Cobra is enjoying it immensely. Got what is now a twisted descent down to the bottom. The yellow jersey has also had a good day. He hasn't raised a pedal in anger, but he's in there and he's heading to the finish with all the fancied ride.
Everybody wants to see if they can get a photograph, which will be a little piece of history here this afternoon, as this man once again picks it up to high pace. He's got to give everything. He can't even hold a single thing back at the moment. And although I said he's not a very good individual time trialist, when you're in a situation like this, when you're looking to win a stage of the Tour, all of a sudden you learn how to push your body and ride on your own.
Well, he is riding absolutely superbly right now. Just look at this, right down the centre line as he races away from the Col d'Aspan down towards the valley. That's where we're headed now. There's no more climbs today. And don't forget, log on, enjoy our Saab Fly to the Finish sweepstakes. All you do is log on, versus.com/fly to the finish, and then follow the instructions. And the code word you need today is descent. And we've done a bit of that for sure today, and the man that's made the most of it is Ricardo Rico.
He wants to see if they can get a photograph, which will be a little piece of history here this afternoon, as this man once again picks it up to high pace. He's got to give everything. He can't even hold a single thing back at the moment. And although I said he's not a very good individual time trialist, when you're in a situation like this, when you're looking to win a stage of the Tour, all of a sudden you learn how to push your body and ride on your own.
Well, he is riding absolutely superbly right now. Just look at this, right down the centre line as he races away from the Col d'Aspin down towards the valley. That's where we're headed now. There's no more climbs today. And don't forget, log on, enjoy our Saab Fly to the Finish sweepstakes. All you do is log on, versus.com/fly to the finish, and then follow the instructions.
These are riders who are taking advantage now, Phil, of the in-house fighting of the overall contenders of the Tour. They've seen how they're going on the climbs. They've looked at each other and decided, well, they're not interested on the placings of the stage this afternoon. They're now starting to switch themselves into tomorrow's race, which is why a lot of the lesser riders, and I don't mean to say that about Sandy Cassar, but he's not a man we expect to win the Tour de France, is leaping away to try and get himself a second, third or fourth place finish.
Through the little town now of Compiègne, which is down in the valley, the Compiègne Valley, comes the leader of the race as he continues on now to go over a little cobble section of the square here. The 17th century town, this, as he battled his way through now, and it's not much longer of the purgatory to go before he'll be into the streets of Bagnères de Bigorre. 7 kilometers, 3 riders still trying to consolidate. It looks as though it's Vladimir Efimkin again who has gone for AG2R and joined those 2 leaders.
And what is amazing about the way the Tour is unfolding is the team that seems to be doing the bulk of the pacemaking whenever it's dangerous is Case d'Epargne, the team of Alejandro Valverde. That indicates to me, Phil, this is Efimkin going off the front. He's looking for a second place out on the road if he can. Mikel Astrolosa is the rider from Euskaltel-Euskadi trying to wave the flag for the Basque country, but behind it's the Spanish team Case d'Epargne who are setting the pace, trying to pull it all back together.
Well, the Russian's a bit too strong for his breakaway compatriots there. He's pulled right away from them. That field has not given up behind, as appeared to be the case. They are still chasing extremely hard there, which might damage the lead of Rico. It does give you an idea just how fast Ricardo Rico is now moving.
Well, he's not got much more to go, Phil. He's inside of 7 kilometers. That corresponds at the speed that he is traveling at to about 9.5 minutes of effort. He will have worked that out in his head. He knows he'll be looking at the onboard computer. You can just see on his handlebars there, and he'll be watching the kilometers tick by. And as long as he looks and sees that he's still got that advantage over the front end of the main field, he has to keep that pain in his legs. He has to keep that pain in his to go for Ricardo Rico. And probably, Phil, the reason there are not too many people in the town of Bagnères de Bigorre here is because they were all on the slopes of the Col de l'Aspin. It's impossible to get down to the finish line from the top of that col.
That's absolutely right. Well, tomorrow we go climbing again, even higher than today, but today it is owned by Ricardo Rico. What a champion. Years of age, his second Tour de France. He's about to win his 4th race of the year. So his victories in the Tour of Italy at Agrigento and Tivoli, he's now going to add his wins in the Tour de France at Superbest and Bagnères de Bigorre. 4 wins, but what wins they are. All that remains now, never mind the grimace, is a smile and a 2-arm salute. He's not dreaming of winning the Tour de France. He is simply dreaming of winning as many stages. Next year, I reckon he'll be here to win the Tour de France.
Well, that's what he said, Phil. He wanted to come here, wanted to learn, he wanted to try and win as many stages as possible, and this is the best way to do it. No inhibitions at all. He's not holding anything back from his efforts this afternoon, Phil. All he wants to do is show how good he can be and will be in the future.
There it is. It's all over. I've just won 2 stages. Sonia Duval-Scott, he points at his team. It's his victory today. An average speed in the mountains of just on 40 kilometers an hour today. That was the fastest expected arrival of the team. And hats off to the Russian rider, Vladimir Efimkin here. He's gaining time. He's reasonably well up overall. He actually pulled away from those boys in the closing straight as well.
Well, he's looking at second position, looking over his shoulder to see and confirm that he's not going to get caught by the acceleration of that group behind her. He's got himself a few euros in the bank for Team AG2R and a little bit of glory as well for himself. As you can see, the shadows of the wheel pedal marks of the riders in the group behind, still led at the front there by Alejandro Valverde and all of his riders from Case d'Epargne. But for Efimkin, it's a nice second place on a mountain stage.
A little bit annoying he couldn't get the winner. You probably think that way. He started 3:03 behind the leaders today. He's probably going to get back 15-20 seconds of that. He'll move up a little bit. He won't quite make the top 20 rather, as we race into the mountains again tomorrow. But Vladimir Efekim has pulled off a great coup there and a terrific show of strength as he salutes the crowd. Second today. Now who's going to take out the sprint here? All of the projected stars of the Tour de France are still here in this group.
Well, that's Cyril Dessel getting across the for third place, but the rest of the main field did not really sprint it out there. For them, they're already thinking about Otakam and what's going to happen next.
That's right, it's all about time today. And this boy gained time. He wasn't really. Race behind stayed together. So when we do get to see the overall classification, we should see all the same time gaps. And now we're ready to go into day 2 in the Pyrenees, where there will be time gaps. There's no way they'll climb Otakam altogether, that's for sure.
Now there's Stefan Schumacher about to come in here, and he, I think, we're probably with Trent Lowe, who was tailed off just a little bit towards the top of the card.
Too tailed off.
Luis Leon Sanchez, he did a big job of work for the team here this afternoon, and also Dario Cioni, one of the teammates coming in of Cadel Evans, and I think that was Chris Froome on the run in towards the finish line too.
Was
for Team Barlow World.
Great ride for Chris Froome there, just tucked in on the back. Well, there is David de la Fuente, I think, but I don't know. He's done just about enough. He certainly rode well to try and snip up the points behind Sebastian Lang. I think he's done enough to keep his polka dot jersey. We will, of course, be finding out pretty soon as we look down now on the casino town here in the Pyrenees of Bagnères de Bigorre. France stage results then. Rico gets the stage ahead of Vladimir Efekim at 1:04. Cyril Dessel third at 1:17. Fofanov fourth. Christian Knies in fifth there, 1:17. As we look further down, Montfort did well. These are all same time in that lead group. Valverde, Kreuziger, Koenigo, Jaroslav Popovic in 10th place. I'm looking for the name of Van der Velde. Sebastian Lang in 11th. Kim Kirk in the yellow jersey. He'll keep it tonight in 12th. Nibali, Fedrigo and Carrera. Come on, where's Christian Van der Velde? I'm sure he's in there. Schleck in 16th. There he is. 20th place. Christian Van der Velde. A minute 17. Same time. Third tonight in the Tour de France. That's terrific. So as the people are still coming in, this is another group coming in right now. A lot of minutes have gone by on the clock outside as they will just be happy to get home. And there is the good news there on the Michelob Ultra standings. Christian Van der Velde climbs one place tonight from 4th up to 3rd. He told us this morning he feels good, he's confident, he leads the team. Boy, he's flying the flag as a great team leader right now. No change basically overall, except that David Miller drops away from that overall situation. Carlos Sastre comes up from 12th into 10th tonight. Samuel Sanchez also moves up as well. Frank Schleck in 11th. Andy Schleck is 12th. And I think he'll be now the best white jersey rider in the race, because Thomas Lundqvist today lost a little bit of time. His young legs not getting him over the Col d'Aspin. Brought home by George Hincapie, actually. 18th place, Roman Kreuziger at 2:20. Christian Knies at 19th place for him. Matteo Bruchagin, the time trial rider, 2:33 in 20th. The second day in the Pyrenees for the survivors of the Tour de France. There are still 170 riders in this race. There is still no clear indication as to who is going to win it. But I think today that will all change. We're heading to Otakam at the end of a day of 97 miles. Racing for about 8 or 9 minutes, and immediately the attack started. And as a result, already 24 riders have taken a lead of just over half a minute. We're still catching up with the composition of the lead group, but I can tell you Popovic is in for Silence Lotto, Cancellara's there for CSC, Marcus Berghout for Team Columbia, Fabian Weckmann, Gerolsteiner, Gianpaolo Schuler, Barlow World, Sebastian Lang there again for Gerolsteiner, this time with Fabian Weckmann, Nicolas Vaugondi, Oscar Freire wearing the green jersey, Pierrick Fedrigo, Boy Telecom, and the leader in the King of the Mountains, David de la Fuente, in the move. And that is Fabian Weckmann we are looking at just at the moment.
Well, Eggman looks a little bit like he's using a large gear here to try and get onto the back of this group, Phil. I think also what's interesting is the fact that in the group, he's obviously got some kind of a problem here, Wegman, and it may well be that he's got a gear problem because he can't change gear. He's looking over his shoulder. He realizes right now he's in a situation where this breakaway is developing, and he won't have any cars behind him because the team cars are not allowed to come in until that gap extends to the 1 minute mark.
Yes, and that he may have snapped a gear cable here, and he may be riding in top gear. It is very unhappy for him, that's for sure. With the first official climb of the day is a third category climb, 38 kilometers in at 118 to go, and so as you can see, he's a little way from that, about 24 kilometers in fact. Number 54 there is Gianpaolo Sciulla. Filippo Pozzato has also made the group here, and this is a very interesting competition, Paul. There are a lot of different teams in it too.
There are a lot of different teams represented for a lot of different reasons. Jaroslav Popovic obviously there for later on in the day, once they start to get caught by the big heads of state, to defend the position of Cadel Evans. Of course, Fabian Cancellara, he's thinking about CSC, and I think today, Phil, Team CSC have got a plan up their sleeves.
Well, we've got pretty much all of the riders in there now. Pieric Fedrigo for Boy Telecom is in here. He's the local boy. There's his name's written a lot of times on the road of the hills today here in the Pyrenees. Oscar Freire, champion of France, Vaugandy. Remember, all the French are looking for a big win today. It's Bastille Day. Romain Feliu has made the split as well. And Marcus Foten has got up there. And the youngest rider in the race, John Lee Augustin from Barlow World. And there's a problem at the back here. And this is going to be for Adam Hansen. Well, he must have been in the peloton, Paul, I think.
He was in the main field, quick bike change. The chain is not on there at the moment, so he's got to start pedaling the pedals over there to try and get the chain on. The mechanic's up alongside him. He flicks the gear lever very quickly. There, the gear is engaged. The chain is now engaged, and he's going to have to get himself back into contact with the main field, which is stretched out into a very long line. They don't want such a big breakaway, Phil, of 24 riders to get clear.
Well, we're looking down there at the field now that's been put under pressure, this breakaway of 24. Don't forget, the weather is fantastic today. It's quite good at 20 degrees, 68 Fahrenheit. There is cloud blowing in, basically still sunny at the finishing line. Winds are very light. It's a perfect day for a race in the Pyrenees.
Yes, I think the weather forecast there, Phil, a little bit deceptive because, yes, 68 degrees in the valleys. But once we get to the summit of the Col du Tourmalet, the temperature is going to plunge to around about 48 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. And the chill factor on the descent will make it even colder than that.
Well, the rider from the Euskaltel Euskadi team, there seems to be only one, is Inaki Asasi. He's up there as now the race continues, but today really is a battle for that yellow jersey for sure. Pressure. They've really ripped out of the blocks. There are 24 riders up front. 17 of the 20 teams in the race have got men up there. Who is left to chase? And we're looking at a gap now of 49 seconds. This is a very serious move, and the only big name up there I would talk about, Paul, probably is Jaroslav Popovic.
That puts a lot of pressure, I think, Phil, on the men in this field because they can't allow a man like Jaroslav Popovic to get 10 or 15 minutes advantage. Jaroslav Popovic, let's not forget, has finished on the podium in the Giro d'Italia, although here he's in the Tour de France to look after the interest of Cadel Evans. And here he's actually taking pressure off the shoulder of Cadel.
Well, there's an awful lot of names. I'll quickly try and run through them for you. For Silence Lotto Popovic, Team CSC Cancellara, Euskaltel is Sardi, Case Depon is Jose Ivan Gutierrez, Team Colombia Marcus Burkhardt, Barlow World, the youngest man in the race, Augustin and Sciulla. Liquigas is Filippo Pozzato, Crédit Agricole is Christophe Lemervel, Quickstep is Matteo Tessato, AG2R is Dupont. Gerolsteiner have 3 riders, Foten, Lang and Weckman. Agritubel have Failure and Vaugandy, the champion of France. Rabobank have Oscar Freire. Bouygues have Fedrigo. Française de Jeu got 3, Chavanel, Di Gregorio and Jeremy Roy. Sonia Duval-Scott has Battagliati and De La Fuente. And Cofidis has Duque, a sprinter, up there.
A lot of riders represented now. Looking at the front end of the main field there, I think they've decided to have a timeout. That was such a violent start to the stage. They were all trying to figure out who was in the breakaway. Well, there are 13, 14 teams represented, Phil, out of the 20 in the race, and that, I think, will indicate that that breakaway now is going to be given a large amount of advantage.
All right, well, as we look down at the sanctuary of Notre-Dame de Pietà, let me remind you to come and join us and enjoy our Saab Fly to the Finish sweepstakes. Don't forget to log on to versus.com/fly to the finish every day while the tour is on. A chance to win a Saab 9.3 Sport Combi and a Cervelo SLC SL bike. Also the jersey, polka dot and yellow, signed by all of the Versus commentators. Today's code word you saw there, very fitting, is attack, and that's what we've seen today. An attack from the gun. A lot of riders going clear. The chase is going to be on as we head for the Tourmalet.
Well, it is. Just looking at the man sitting on the back there in the red and black jersey of Team Silence Lotto, I think his presence in this breakaway, Phil, is a blessing for Team Silence Lotto and Cadel Evans, because they are not going to allow him too much leeway, because he is an excellent bike rider. Finished in the top 10 in the Tour de France himself. He is a great climber. Give him 10 minutes start at the start of the Col de Tourmalet, you might not see him again.
Yes, Popovic here is the workhorse for Cadel Evans, and he sat there at the tail of the gun. Well, the British rider Mark Cavendish, who represents the American Team Columbia, he's got 2-stage win for them. He's now back in the field. The upside-down world here of Fabian Cancellara. One number cancels out the superstition of the other, I guess. Good to see David De La Fuente. He's pulled on that leader's polka dot jersey, and he's going to keep it if he gets his way.
I know, quite funny, Phil, just looking back through the record books this morning. The last time, or 2 years ago, when the race went over the Col de Tourmalet, I was trying to figure out who'd gone over the summit in first place. It was David De La Fuente.
Yes, he can climb and he wants to. He's absolutely no pushover at all. So he's a good leader of the King of the Mountains. Team Columbia's Marcus Burkhardt is the man who's made the selection up here. But most of the work still being left to Milram back in the field. One of only 3 teams who haven't put anybody in this break. It wasn't easy. Although you've got a lot of riders up here, it was a rough selection to get into the move. Very fast acceleration right from the 0 kilometre today. Oscar Ferreira saw his chance. He's riding in green, as they're borrowing the green jersey off Kim Kirken today, and he put a lot of work in early on to get that gap opened up.
Well, just look at the backdrop there. It is quite magnificent if you're looking for a picture postcard, but if you're a professional cyclist, that's just a little bit scary, Phil, because that's where the main field is heading here this afternoon. One man I think will be a little bit more reticent than the rest, and that's Cadel Evans, who was involved in that accident yesterday at around about 106 kilometers into the race. And his first thought when he actually crashed was, oh no, I've lost the Tour.
Yeah.
And then he checked himself, he checked his collarbone, he checked his arm, and he said, oh well, I'm standing up, I must be okay. Now then, where's my bike? And he looked around for his bike. His bike was damaged. The team manager came up alongside, gave him a new bike because the gear mechanism was smashed, and he got himself back into the race. And he did very well, I think, to survive in that group over the climbs of the day. And he must have been in awful agony. But today he reckons he's fine, but I think he'll be playing very much a monitoring situation.
He said he saw the Spanish rider fallen as he came around the corner. The next thing he remembers is standing up from the crash. He doesn't remember the impact at all. And there was a lady's handbag wrapped in his chain. He said it wasn't the cause of the crash. He thinks his bike flew into the crowd by itself when he fell off and collected that unfortunate lady's handbag. I presume they gave it him back, gave it the team back anyway. He's back in the race. That's the most important thing. I think it's a big blow to his morale, but today he's going to take a boost from this. Jaroslav Popovic, his lieutenant, is in that leading group.
Well, actually, just to come back, it wasn't any old handbag. I believe it was a very well-known brand name, so I'm sure the lady seriously wanted to get it back.
You bet your life, and with the souvenir, a few chain wheel marks on it too. Still, it was good leather. As the riders continue now at high speed. Well, just look at the speed of this bunch now. They are really moving. This has been a great start to the day. I'm excited. I hope you people are at home. I know it's early for you guys back there, but stay with us because this race is just...
Stepania coming up to set themselves at a slightly false tempo just to make sure that that move doesn't get a massive advantage over the front end of the peloton. They don't really want to chase it down as we speak, and as it is the French national holiday, Phil, I'm not surprised to see a huge crowd out on this small climb.
That's right, we're not far out of town at the moment. We'll head down towards Lourdes before we move across to Bagno de Bigorre. And in between is the mountain points being taken here by David De La Fuente. I'm just wondering why there's been nothing, no sign at all here of Sebastian Lang, and De La Fuente checking over his shoulder there to see if he's coming after him.
Well, I think you might find that Sebastian Lang has got rather sore legs after his escapade from yesterday.
So maximum points then for David de la Fuente. That's 5 for him, gives him a 4 for him rather, a 65 total. And I don't know how many points Lang got, if any. This is Mark Cavendish back at the doctor's surgery now. He crashed quite heavily, but he's okay, I think. He's a tough boy. He's riding extremely well right now. This is a tough race this year. It is so unpredictable. And as we've seen by the attack today, there's a lot of guys believe in themselves. And if you believe in yourself when you're in the mountains, get in with a chance. We're on to the outskirts now, away from Lourdes here. So very shortly, Paul, they'll be on to the climb that we saw. It'll be coming with 89 kilometres to go, 87 kilometres to go. We'll start the climb according to the race book. But just look at the length of that line. This has been a very hard start. Those legs are going to go like rubber on the Tourmalet.
There are going to be a lot of sore legs and sore bodies by the time we get to the Tourmalet. I make it about 15 kilometres from that next third category climb, Phil, and that's, I think, what their goal is here. They want to catch the leading breakaway before they get to that third category climb, because if they don't, I think this organisation will disappear and the breakaway will then succeed.
There's going to be a lot of riders bringing up the rear by the time they come to Otakam, that is for sure. It's one road up and the same road back on the mountain here. There are hundreds upon hundreds of camper homes here, and the police have got them all lined up on the ridge as if the cavalry's about to run down off the top there. It looks quite remarkable. They're just silhouetted right across the Pyrenees, and you might get a shot of those as we finish the day's coverage.
Well, checking out a couple of heart rates, Marcus Burkhardt is having quite an easy ride in the breakaway, if I may say so, Phil, because his heart rate is only just tickling 135. Now, that's probably around about 60% of his maximum up there, just inside of 300 watts.
Well, he may have just lifted his head up and got a bit of a shock, because there's a split in that leading 24 riders just now, and they can see them. Look at the chase here. They've got them in the same straight, so there'll also be a clear out of vehicles between the two groups now. So I'll take my hat off to Milram, because they've got no candidate to win the Tour, and yet they've really put the back in along with Garmin Chipotle to close this breakaway down.
On this long section of straight road, I'll tell you one thing, Phil, those guys from Garmin Chipotle and of course from Team Milram will now all of a sudden feel that little bit relieved, because when you can't actually see the breakaway coming back to you, it starts to work in your mind where we're working, we're suffering like this, we're not getting anywhere. But now all of a sudden they can see the goal, they can see the prize at the end of the road, and they've actually got something to aim for, and that's what they're doing. They're trying to just pull them back into the fold before we get to that next climb.
And their legs are really going to start until this is Peter Vellich taking them through at the moment from Milram. Just looking down here at the effort being made. This will be Fabian Cancellara with a big turn. Looks over his shoulder. They're going to see that race. Oscar Freire really wanted to stay away till the next sprint, but it looks like it may not happen. They're going to put him back in the fold. Maybe that's why Milram are chasing, because of now right in their sights here. The bridge is about to happen, and it looks like we're going to put every rider back together. That was a hard chase, and that has hurt a lot of riders. At 59 miles to go, the two big mountains still to come. The status quo here begins again. So Cadel Evans' teammate Jaroslav Popovic is now back in the bunch. And talking about Cadel Evans, as you know, he fell pretty heavily yesterday. And it was a great shame, because he came round the corner, he saw the Spanish rider crashed, and he says that's the last thing he remembered until he stood up. And clearly he'd fallen very heavily. There he is getting back on his bike. He said he found a lady's handbag in his chain wheel, so it caused a bike change as well. He is very heavily skinned from head to toe, apparently. Although it's not apparent by these, he's skinned right down his thigh, right down his back. He thought he'd broken his collarbone. There he is when he finished. He wouldn't speak to anybody, not surprisingly. In fact, his car was stopped for speeding at 100 miles an hour to get him to the hospital, and the police then decided not to arrest him, but to take the driver with sirens to the hospital to get to Cadel even faster. Which is Christophe Lumavel, who's pushing on from the group at the moment. And behind him, we're on the climb, I think, here, Paul, the Côte de l'Écrou. This is the one we dropped down early, just a kilometre to go to the top. This is the main field, and again De La Fuente is going to have his moments here. He's going to take on
Got 7 riders up the road ahead of him, Phil, so I'm not quite sure why he's trying to accelerate there, because there are only points here for the first 4 riders to cross the line. These are the leading group of 7 at 1 kilometre to go, and they've got around about a 50-second advantage over the front end of the main field. Now, for Oscar Freire, he's not worried about points on the mountains, but he's worried.
Oh, what's going on there?
Well, I think somebody just slowed down a fraction.
A bit of a push away from him there, because that was, I think, that was one of the Barlow World riders, yeah. Anyway, there's the breakaway, there's the field rather, as they try to catch a splintering breakaway, which was powered away by Fabian Cancellara with a big effort at the front. Oscar Freire never misses a move. He's a great tactical rider. You still have to have the legs to answer those attacks, though. There he is.
Well, I have to say, Francis de Jure did the best move once this split, because they put 2 riders in here. Just sitting at the back there, 168, is Jeremy Roy. The man in front is the much better climber. That's Remy de Gregorio. While at the front end of the main field, I think we're seeing a certain amount of sense and stability moving into this. Still, Federico on the front, the former national champion of France. David Miller over to the right-hand side. But behind him, you can see Philippe Gilbert. But this is basically the front end of the main field now, which has pulled back the remnants of that 24-man breakaway. They'll probably feel a more relaxed air in the main field now, Phil, because 7 men are not quite as scary as 24. And, of course, they've pulled back the danger man, Jaroslav Popovic.
Yes, the only minor danger man in the front group, Marcus Fulton, is 7:43 behind overall overnight. So they won't rush at him. Combination might be a bit more workable now as they continue to climb at the front of Colombia, who can pack a real sprint on the front.
No, he really is a very good sprinter. I don't think many of these riders will be over-concerned with the points at the top of this 3rd category climb, but they do have to get out of the saddle to keep the gears ticking over, just to keep themselves off the front end of the main field. The gap has come down to around about the 40 seconds. I think we will see that start to stretch, Phil, once we've gone over the summit of the climb.
And there is the summit of the climb there. And with Duque still being left on the front, but I think the Francis de Jure boys will go for him here. They want to get the name on the scoreboard on Bastille Day, and de Gregorio is poised. Are they going to bother? Are they going to leave the sprinter to his great moment? He does ride for the French Cofidis team, and they are. So it'll be over first for Leonardo Duque, and I think second there, de Gregorio. In time to see Oscar Freire tootle out of the group here, get another 6 points for that green jersey. Duque, the other sprinter in this leading group, deciding that he had to show his legs. He gets second. Jeremy Roy then will take 3rd. So 12 points in the bank today in the green jersey competition for Oscar Freire. So he's building his lead, but it's far from certain he will lead tonight, because Kim Kirkham will be hoping to score on the big mountains just ahead now. Well, just before the start today, one rider from the US sits in 3rd place, Christian Vance, and now he's taking his new job as a team director. There's the peloton as they now thread through. This will be Campon and Saint-Marie Campon. We're looking for the start of the Tourmalet now. I think the leaders have just about got through. This is the town of Campon. These Pyrenean grey-slated houses. As the peloton knows now, the first big challenge of the Tour is literally just around the corner. It is through the history, goodness knows, since 1910 the Tour de France has passed through here. Stories abound all over the area. Eugene Christophe, who broke his forks, used a 12-year-old boy to pump the bellows, got immediately a 10-minute time penalty. We've had all of the most famous names on these roads. Well, there it is, Paul, 17.7 kilometres. We've got the leaders going in with quite a nice lead over the field. 8.5 minutes. I should imagine will come down on this climb.
It will come down quite dramatically on the climb. Here is Fabian Cancellara, a man who already has won himself 9 wins this year, including a great victory, I have to say, on the final stage of the Tour of Switzerland, which finished right in his hometown, and that was at the top of a very difficult climb in Bern. And that climb in Bern, Phil, I have to say, is nothing at all in comparison to what he's facing up to now.
Oh, no, but they're not going to race at this climb. They're not intending to hold off the Tour de France. The idea is to now just get settled in on this climb. We've done all the little climbs. This one takes us up to 6,939 feet, and it gets steeper as you get higher. Hopefully, visibility is good. It is on the Haute Cam. It should be over on the Tourmalet, which, as the crow flies, is not that far away from where we are commentating from. In miles, it's 11 miles at an average gradient of 7.5%. Yes, welcome back to Col de Tourmalet, the most revered climb in the history of the Tour de France. We are now on its lower slopes. These are the leaders who've got there first, 7 of them, and they're being chased by Freddy Bichou, who's closed down now to within 35 seconds of catching them up. There he is. The peloton, containing all the favourites, are nearly 9 minutes back of the leaders. So there's a lot of work to be done now, as the attacks are sure to start on this climb. Been a very inspired chase by Freddy Bichou, and we thought he was banging his head against a brick wall trying to cross that gap, but he's very, very close to seeing the leaders now. You can see by his face he's really given this a huge effort to try and get up to those leaders. He's built himself over 8 minutes lead on the peloton behind. This is what we expected. Now look at this. Sonia Duval have launched an attack again. I want to see that second rider. I don't think it's Ricardo Rico, but if it is, then there is big trouble brewing.
He doesn't care. He does not care about anybody's reputation in this Tour de France here this afternoon. In fact, it is Ricardo Rico in second spot, and chasing up behind all over his bike is a certain German rider, and that is Jens Voigt.
Jens Voigt, I think that Schuler also has come across for Barlow World. There is a Garmin rider after them as well. So this is a very promising start. There's serious problems here, though. If Ricardo Rico tries to open gaps on today's stage, then you will be talking of him as a man that could win the Tour de France.
Well, this is an interesting start to the climb. At 9 minutes the advantage, and you can see already 1 or 2 riders scrambling across the gap here. The main contenders of the race, Phil, will certainly have to pay a lot of attention to what's going on here. The sprinters, like Mark Cavendish at the back, will just have to ride to survive.
This is how he rode the stage yesterday, and today he's got double trouble because he's crashed early on the stage today. He's not feeling too well, I don't think, so he's dropping off a little bit early. But as long as he rides at his own pace, he will pick up other riders who drop off, and together they can head for the finish. But already we are seeing a strange pattern to the race, and the fact that Rico is tucked in here is going to cause a reaction from those riders behind. I don't believe they're going to give him another go out front today.
Well, this is the town of Sainte-Marie-de-Campan, made famous by that story of Eugénie Christophe, and today it's been made famous by the fact that it's the start of the aggression at the front end of the main field.
This is the start of the Tourmalet. Normally we descend right down here into Sainte-Marie, and then we go up towards the finish in Luzard-et-Don. Greg LeMond knows all about winning a stage on that occasion, but now we're going the other way. We are now leaving the town and heading straight onto the slopes. And from here on in, the Tourmalet bites.
It certainly does bite, and it bites in at around about 10% of average gradient once we've got over the early flat part of the course, and it just becomes a relentless climb. It's the same at 9 way to the summit, and especially through the town of La Mongie.
Well, we're just going to wait now for the composition of this group here, but I think we've got Schuler in here, we've got Jens Voigt, we've got Ricardo Rico, and there he is there right now. And they're just along for the company there. I think he's David Arroyo of Case de Pan. As it's all beginning to build up now, they're all starting to lift their tempo, but you know, climbers like to have their own tempo. They don't like to have to match the other riders' tempo, so they're gradually coming across at their speed.
Well, just check how Case de Pan, you put a couple of riders across that gap, and they're going to defend the interests of their man Alejandro Valverde. I can see that Team Gerolsteiner have decided they want to send a couple of riders across the gap here as well to whip up the pace-making, and it's having a serious effect at the back end because all of the non-climbers are slipping back, as now has Robbie McEwen there wearing number 6. He will very shortly wait to see if he can see the forming of what the professional bike riders call the autobus, the group of riders who just try to get through the mountain stages inside of the time limit.
Well, it looks like we've got Joseph Joof setting the pace here on the front. I'm just wondering who that tall Garmin rider is back there. I don't think it's Will Fishcorn.
Well, we look further back. It's actually all coming
back up.
It's all coming back together now. They've been pretty attentive while the group of the sprinters starting to form at the back end of the main field, and Will Fishcorn is at the back of the main field, which is not surprising. He will try and survive. Mark Renshaw is with him. This is the group fill of the sprinters. Philippe Gilbert dropping back now.
Which also surprised me, he's gone back earlier, Alexander Kuzinski, who has been the last rider in the race, but he isn't at the moment. These riders decide to form a group at the back. It's good news for Mark Cavendish, who's a bit further down the road. Hopefully he'll climb up to that group and make himself a little bit more at home. Right, the initial acceleration has been countered by the field here, and they pull themselves back up to the leading group. Interesting move, though, by Sony Duval, and I think they're preparing the way for Leonardo Pipoli today.
Well, that's what Ricardo Rico said overnight, that he was happy to have won his 2 stages, but he seriously would like to help his teammate Leonardo Pipoli get himself a stage.
This is Trent Lorup is on the front here. The Australian is either Trent or Ryder Hesjedal, the Canadian rider, who's got himself onto the front. That's a very good piece of riding, and that's something we haven't seen on the Tourmalet, I don't think, ever before. A Canadian cyclist setting the pace.
Well, do you remember Steve Bauer?
Yes, but I don't remember him on the front on the Tourmalet.
Well, I remember Steve Bauer when he was wearing the yellow jersey for about 10 days in the Tour, and he was quite a phenomenal Canadian cyclist, Steve Bauer. It looks as if somebody's ridden away from the leading group, and I wouldn't be surprised, Phil, if that's not Remy de Gregorio.
Well, he's the pure climber of the group, and he wants to get away before this group gets picked up, I think. They're down now to 8:22. Française des Yeux, it is Remy de Gregorio. He is the climber. And now he's settling into being a climber. He's managed to hang on to the heavyweight roadmen on the flat, but now this is his territory. Planning something later, perhaps.
Yeah, but check out Kurt Atler Arvidsson just over on the far side there. Another rider from Team CSC moving forward. Now you understand why we've seen nothing at all in the first 10 days from Team CSC. They came out and performed well in the individual time trial, but for the rest of the race, they've done nothing at all. They've been saving themselves for the mountains.
And this is the softener. I think it looks to me, because of a long descent before they climb Otakam. They won't attack until Otakam. They're trying to just wear them down on the Tourmalet. There is the man who's having an heroic climb in Di Gregorio as he continues up the mountain here. Nice gap he's open too, and he's still holding a good lead here. I think he's going to win over the top of this.
Well, absolutely, and he's going to pick himself up a good 20 points over the top of an outside categorized climbs, and he will launch himself up the overall classification of the King of the Mountains. There's the second group, led by Fabian Cancellara. I'll tell you one thing, he's actually climbing very well for a big man. He's a man better known for his time trialing ability, but here he's riding because he knows how important it is for Team CSC, Phil, today to have an extra man at the front of the race, because if they catch up to him, they've got almost all of their men in the leading group.
And that's why they got those yellow numbers, I guess, as the best team in the race just for the moment. Leonardo Duque, a sprinter who's now learning to do what most Colombians can do naturally, and that's climb mountain. He's normally all of the famous Colombians in the Tour de France, Parra, Lucho Herrera, they were great climbers here. This is a very select group of riders here. The Maillot Jaune a little bit close to the back here, Paul, and slipping off it looked as though it was Volodymyr Gusev, who has just been doing a lot of work at the front.
Well, when you've done your job of work as a domestique, that's what happens. You have to sacrifice yourself, and he's sacrificed himself completely here, pushed himself into the red zone. Now he will just try and survive. If he can, he'll try and recover and get back into the group over the top of this climb, but once their lights go out, they usually have gone out for good on a mountain stage.
All of the big names, though, are still in this group, which is down to about 30 riders now, but they're all still here, including Christian van der Velde, the United States rider who sits in third. We've got obviously the yellow jersey. The polka dot jersey is gone. David De La Fuente, he's well gone. Trent Lowe is still here too for Garmin Chipotle, and he's a big find for this team from Australia.
He's a solid find. I think he's a man who has impressed us over the last couple of months, and now he's starting to impress us here on the slopes of the Mont de Tourmalet, I should say. We're going through here La Mongie, which is about 4.5 kilometers to go to the summit of the climb, and this man here is at 3.7 kilometers to the summit of the climb, so he's almost ridden out of the town. He is a great climber. We saw him make a long raid like this in the Dauphiné Libéré just 12 months ago, and that's when we first thought that this man would be a good climber. But here he's riding in a totally different class and a totally different class of climb.
And he's doing very, very well. La Mongie, this is the village halfway up the Tourmalet, which usually shuts down in the winter with snow, but they keep the road open for the ski specialists. It was once where Lance Armstrong came through here on the wheel of little Roberto Heras. There's the ski village. This is the easiest way to the top today, except when you're on a bicycle, of course. And here come the leaders through the village.
And that's the rider who will be hoping to defend Cadel Evans a little bit later on.
Well, these riders now are moving towards the final kilometre. The leader is moving towards the summit of the Col de Tourmalet. Then I wonder if he'll try to push on for Hautecam.
There's a Lampre rider here going out of the back, and it's the number we've been looking for, Damiano Cunego. He is not looking very comfortable at all. Number 71 came to the Tour de France this year, Phil, to try and get himself a podium position. Well, he's not enjoying the mountains so far.
He's being looked after too by Schmidt, who is always a rider last to go in the mountains. Cunego puffing and blowing here. He is the first of the favourites to show he's fallible. He's going to fight to hold these people in touch because he'll want to get back on the way down. Mario Ertz has gone now. That's to be expected. But as we pick through the riders here, the other favourites... Is that Alejandro Valverde with the bandages? Valverde is cracked. That is the second favourite in trouble. And Cadel Evans hasn't appeared yet. He's still in the next group.
Well, Cadel Evans only has to do one thing today, Phil. He's got to cover the moves. He's got to see who's going to be the rider to attack and just has to sit there and bide out his time. But Jens Voigt is still on the front of this group. Jens has not been in a breakaway in the Tour this year. He's been very, very attentive. There's Freddy Bichot just over on the left-hand side. He is being caught now by a grimacing, punching Jens Voigt.
Well, that man is worth twice his salary. I don't care what you say for a team. He's brilliant. But I saw Cadel Evans. That group is now down to just 20 riders. Denny Menchoff is still there. Evans is still there. The yellow jersey is still there. I think he's having a much better day than yesterday for Kim Kirken. This is the leader. He deserves his moment on top of the Col de Tourmalet. One of, if not the most famous climb in the history of the Tour de France. And Remy Di Gregorio sees the banner on Bastille Day and he storms the mountain.
Well, this is one of the legendary climbs of the Tour de France, first introduced into the Tour in 1910 to toughen up the race. It's certainly toughening up the race here in 2008. And Remy Di Gregorio, Phil, gets himself 20 points, maximum points over the summit there, while at 6.5 minutes, Jens Voigt is putting everybody into difficulty. This man will not give up.
I find that amazing for Jens Voigt to do that.
Stijn de Volder is the next victim of Jens Voigt. Jens Voigt is stamping out an infernal pace on the front end of this main field. He is eliminating riders one by one, Phil, almost single-handedly.
But he is using the energy, of course, that will cause him to fall back on Hautecam, but he'll hope to have left there Sastre. We've seen Maxime Montfort also going for Cofidis. He's their climber now. And this rider here is Sitsu, who's done his best for the riders up front, for Kim Kirken in particular, but he's going back as well now. One by one, these riders are cracking big time. Astelosa in orange, he's also lagging off the back.
There's a lot of big names in serious difficulty here this afternoon. Now you can understand why we've not talked about Team CSC since the very first day of this bike race, because they've been planning, they've been waiting. They took the race Bible a week ago, Phil, and they said, right, forget about all of the fun we can have on the flat stages. We're going to come out and have some serious fun in the mountains. And I think, despite the fact that Jens Voigt is pulling himself inside out there, he's enjoying what he's doing to the Tour de France this afternoon.
This is the remnants of the breakaway. It's now spread across the Tourmalet, but they are still ahead of the battle for yellow. Just sat at the back here, Jeremy Roy. It's his teammates who's gone over the top in first place. Dupont is there as well, 103. Meanwhile, these long legs of Jens Voigt tapping out a rhythm that few riders seem to be able to hold.
One man is holding that grinding pace, and it was Denny Menchoff. He was right up alongside Jens Voigt there. He's a man who is very difficult to put into difficulty. He's a strong, tough rider from Russia, and he will stay right at the front end of this main field. Slipping to the back, Leonardo Pipoli there, the man who many people think this stage is lined up for here this afternoon.
We still have not caught a glimpse of Christian van der Velde, but he's there, he's right there, and so too is Kim Kirken. So the big three in the Tour have not been broken yet. Kirken, Evans, van der Velde are still there. At the start today, Schumacher was fourth. He's been dropped. And Menchoff is there, and up to fourth at the moment. Valverde has been dropped. He should get back on the descent, but a kilometre still to climb, Paul. He'll have to race hard.
191 there, just sitting in the back in front of the yellow jersey is Christian van der Velde. He started the day in third place in the overall classification, but Phil, this is a serious sorting out. We've had the first serious sorting out today. There is Frank Schleck a little bit further back in the red, white and blue. Team CSC have got hold of the front end of this race. Andy Schleck is here. There are 5 riders from CSC in this group. Yeah. And don't forget in front...
And only one working, and look at his face.
And one in front, well, you must not forget, they've got Fabian Cancellara. And I think once we've gone over the summit of the Col de Tourmalet, he will become a member of this group. And they're going to hammer down the road to set us up for a very magnificent assault of the climb of Hautacam.
But there are others still here. People at the back is a great climber. They're inside a kilometre to the summit. They haven't lost any ground or time. Look at Cadell Evans, number 1. He's looked very, very smooth. Ricardo Rico is here. 191, the American sensation this year. Christian van der Velde. He's not in any trouble at all. Let's have a look at Kirken's face. He's concentrating. He's on a better day.
It's not showing any signs of emotion at all. It's just plain concentration. He knows what everybody's trying to do to him. He's just sitting there, sticking on the wheel of the man in front of him. There's the South African white flag there, waving himself high for John Lee Augustin, who's a little bit further down the road. But Phil, this is a...
Not the way he's ridden today. He has been absolutely magnificent. Look at this man, Paul.
You've got to love the style of Jens Voigt. He's all over that machine. You know, if you took him away from the sport of cycling and put him in any other sport, he'd be a boxer.
Well, this is a terrific ride by a super domestic Matt White. He's preparing the way here for Sastra. I just wonder if we can hear any comment. And here comes the man for the summit again. The Cobra is about to strike again.
Well, the Cobra is striking here for points. Let's not forget he was third, Phil, in the King of the Mountains classification at the start of the day. And I'm not sure. It's a bit complicated to try and figure out how many riders are in front.
But really, I'm not sure myself anymore.
Well, a little bit further down the climb, this is the group of Alejandro Valverde. He has not enjoyed the Col de Tourmalet here this afternoon, but he mustn't give up. You know, you can have a bad day in the mountains in the Tour. It can all turn around the next day, and he has to remember that. He's got a rest day that he's facing up to tomorrow, but he's got to come back into the Pyrenees the day after that. And if he hasn't lost himself more than a minute, his descending skills should allow him to get back up to the group of the leaders.
Well, it was 8th place indeed, judging by the riders in front. Still in front are Dupont, Roy, Duque, the leader, of course, Di Gregorio. We've still got Cancellara. They're now going to rethink the strategy on the way down here to barren descent for a little while.
It's a long, sweeping descent to begin with, and as you can see, there is no safety net at all. It is a long way down this descent, around about 20 kilometres.
Well, we're chasing one man, and all of the pack are together except Valverde. 5:57 the gap. Just looking now for the descent as we go down the mountain, and that's going to try and get Damiano Cunego back in here as he continues the climb down here with Sylvester Schmidt. He's going to try. Well, what's happened there? A motorcyclist has gone down there. A motorcyclist has crashed on the corner, but it looks as though he is okay. The 2 Lamprey riders are safely back there. The dangers are for everybody, and they're real on the way down the Col. Oh, and that was another one. He just had to pull his foot off the pedal there, but he's put it right again, and that was Damiano Cunego. Schmidt actually slams his brakes on, corrects it. Maybe the eye wandered a bit there with the crash of the moto rider. He was a photographer apparently from Race Radio. As we now continue the dive, we are now continuing down here with the yellow jersey still up there, and Oscar Freire in front of him. Freire back in the race, of course. He was up front in the leading. Di Gregorio has gone over the top with 2:10 in hand over Jeremy Roy, his teammate, who got over there in second. He's now making his descent down to the valley, race along the valley, and then hopefully he'll be in front when he gets up Hautacam. That's a tall order. Now I think we can go back to Matt White here, who is in the team car. We've seen him chatting to his riders today. We had an earlier talk on the phone with him. Just trying to see if we can get those lines linked up again. We're just waiting to see if we can get him to pick up the phone, actually. Probably doesn't know which phone is ringing. He's probably got 3 or 4 of them. I'll just give you the order over the top, which has now been announced. Di Gregorio was first at 2 minutes 10 seconds with Jeremy Roy. Dupont was behind him, and Duque was 4th. Marcus Fulton was 5th at 3 minutes 10. Cancellara 6th at 3 minutes 45. Oscar Freire, who's now back with Kim Kirken, at 4.5 minutes, was 7th. Rico came up behind at 6 minutes with the yellow jersey, and Voigt was 9th. We'll go again with Matt a little later on. Very fast descending now as we watch now. They've got to still bridge 6 minutes from the yellow jersey group to Di Gregorio. The other riders have split asunder. They vary from 2 minutes to 5 minutes behind the leader. So we are picking them up. We've already seen, since we crossed the top, Oscar Freire now back in that elite chase group containing the yellow jersey.
Well, Oscar Freire, I think, will be very happy with his day because he's stolen a march on all of the other sprinters in the race. But towards the end of the day, we may well see again a change in that green jersey race, because I'm not sure that Kim Kirken is having a bad day like he did yesterday. This is the next group on the road, the second group behind Remy Di Gregorio, and there you can see Monsieur Dupont on the front there for AG2R.
Race radio saying that Valverde is coming back. He's 25 seconds behind the yellow jersey group now. He seems to have other riders with him, but our cameras aren't there. 25 seconds still to bridge of the 50. He was back.
Well, never discount a man like Alejandro Valverde. He won't panic at all. He'll know that he can have a bad moment for a couple of kilometers on the slopes of something like the Col de Tourmalet, but he can always ride himself back in when he comes to the ascent of the Haut de Cam. There, though, under not too much difficulty on his own. Unfortunately for him, though, is the yellow jersey Kim Kirken. He dare not now, Phil, have a mechanical incident, because then it would be very difficult to come back.
The oldest rider in the race is tagged in with this yellow jersey group, Stefan Goubert, Paul, at 38. That's fantastic. A right royal pursuit down the valley as we head towards the Argelès-Gazos, which is the entrance to the climb to Haut de Cam, Paul.
Well, the gap between these two groups, Phil, is actually stretching. It's not coming back anymore. We're almost at the bottom of the valley road before we start the ascent up to Haut de Cam. The last time check was 1 minute and 15 seconds between the yellow jersey group and the group of Alejandro Valverde. And at the front of the yellow jersey group, riding in about 4th or 5th position, I saw a very comfortable and confident-looking Christian van der Velde.
Yes, and van der Velde's car has just gone by because they've been stuck behind the Valverde group, and they're trying to get up to van der Velde to give him a drinking bottle out of that car. I think they just got through there. 3 minutes 22. They're closing in pretty quickly on this flat section. They are going so quickly. There's Frank Schleck at the back. Sastre is just in front of him.
Well, they've got their men on the front, the big firepower on the front. Jens Voigt, Fabian Cancellara charging down this valley road here. This is the valley of the Luz. These are the gorges of the Luz where we're watching the battle take place here in front of us. Van der Valverde there has got a little bit of help coming now and again from Damiano Cunego, but he'll have an awful lot of passengers in that group because they will not want to assist at all. They realize what is happening in the race today. Alejandro Valverde, if he can't pull himself back into this race, is losing the Tour de France.
I have a feeling, Paul, he is not going to close this gap. I've just got that feeling here because that front group is being driven by 2 riders in self-destruct mode. They are going into the red zone to stop this man rejoining. They'll crack big time once we start the climb, but they may well have destroyed 2 possible winners of the Tour. Valverde, who's just look at Damiano. This is Schmidt at the front at the moment, yeah. But Damiano Cunego is in this group.
Yeah, Sylvester Schmidt is the rider on the front from Team Lampre, and he will sacrifice himself for Damiano Cunego and do whatever he can. 25 kilometers to go now for the Alejandro Valverde group, but this is an incredible chase today, and what it's going to do is going to leave some very sore bodies on the early slopes of Haut de Cam. While this young man, just look at the time gap here, it's dropped from 5 minutes to 3 minutes.
Well, he's just over 4 kilometers ahead of the Valverde group, so it put him about 3 kilometers ahead of the yellow jersey group, and they are coming back very quickly here. He may not even get to the start of the climb. Souvenir bottle thrown off to the little gaggle of people there. Now it looks like he wants another one now as he continues here, but he's looking very, very tired, very, very tired. as we go down this beautiful valley here now. Let me remind you, you can select your own cycling team if you want to. Come and join us on Versi.com, because the two big favourites are struggling now. So too is George, but he'll get home. He's raced up here before. And we are watching now a violent chase here. They're 16 seconds behind the race leader. 14.4 kilometres are on it. Jens Voigt is still there. Cancellara has just been dropped from the group. Two riders at the back congratulated him as he went back on his incredible work, because I think he's buried Valverde and Cunego today. And here we have the green jersey. He got 12 extra points today, but he still might not be the leader tonight, because Kim Kirken is looking for double points on what is a huge climb here, and he's still up there. But this is now big trouble here. They're right behind, Paul.
Well, slipping back another rider. This is Jeremy Rouvy, who was in the breakaway. They still haven't yet quite got to Remy de Gregorio, but they've still got Jens Voigt on the front of this field. He really has dug deep here this afternoon. This is the kind of effort he would normally put into a breakaway situation, but he's doing it for a different reason today. He wants to break the spirit of all of the contenders.
Before the race started, a week before in fact, he said to us, he said, I'm going to the Tour de France. You won't see me this year in any stupid breakaways. I'm going there for one reason, to help my team win the Tour. He's absolutely right as far as this is concerned today.
Well, our little computer throwing us a wobbly there. They reckon that our leader, Phil, is going to get caught at 9 kilometres to go. I would say he's going to get caught in the next 500 metres.
He's just around the corner. That's absolutely for sure. That the rider in the red, by the way, is Moises Duenas Nevada, the Spanish new rider on Team Bala World in this group. Ah, dear me, and this is Hubert Dupont, who's in that wonderful breakaway. They've just gone straight by him now. That's a great shame. Andy Schleck is at the back in the white Best Young Riders jersey. He's holding that jersey tonight. On his left there, Christian van der Velde. In front of him is the yellow jersey. They're all at the back of the group now. Look at this. There is the leader below, and here come the stars of the Tour.
And Jens Voigt has just pulled over, Phil, after a monumental turn at the front end of the peloton, and it looks like Leonardo Pipoli now decided to take over as we get to the steep part of the climb. Great ride by Remy de Gregorio, but you can see now that the race is starting to unfold. The big names are moving forward.
Well, that's always a sad sight. He doesn't deserve this, but here comes Frank Schleck now as he looks over his shoulder, reminiscent of the days of Lance Armstrong when he looked at Alpe d'Huez on Jan Ullrich. We're all for the top now. Frank Schleck on the front now. Jens Voigt has had his moments, and what great moments they were. He has put his team in a position to win today, and a very strong position to win in Paris. I think we expected Pipoli to attack Paul. He just went.
Leonardo Pipoli and Riccardo Rico said he wanted to try and set the race up for his teammate here this afternoon. As we can see, Andy Schleck has done a lot of work, and he's been dropped off the yellow jersey group here this afternoon. He's the best young rider at the start of today, but he's sacrificed himself for his team, and he sacrificed himself for Carlos Sastre.
But don't forget that Rico qualifies for that Best Young Riders jersey, and he will be gaining time now on Schleck. He's got a little bit in hand, Andy Schleck, but Rico's going to close the gap if he stays up here. Brother Frank is doing the tempo right now.
Frank has come to the front. He's nullified that move by Leonardo Pipoli. That's Pipoli just on his shoulder. Just behind him, Riccardo Rico. Cadel Evans is looking pretty comfortable there, getting out of the saddle. That must be quite painful. But the yellow jersey is in difficulty, and he's been dropped.
Cadel Evans, is that Cadel just in front? No, he's in the group. That's about 6 seconds. That makes Cadel the leader of the Tour de France right now, because Kim Kirken is in trouble.
Well, you mustn't panic when you're the yellow jersey in a situation like this. Find your rhythm, because if you try and stay with these riders who are accelerating and decelerating and you blow up, you're going to lose yourself an awful lot of time. This is now the response by Carlos Sastre. He's seen Sonia Duval-Scott trying to set something up, but he said, now I have to do it. My men have done the job today, and he's gone.
Well, Carlos Sastre has got to deliver now after the way his team has ridden for him today and has still continued to ride for him. Well, that battle has been neutralised yet again at the front. This is Kobo at the front just for the moment. Sonia Duval-Scott, they've got 3 riders in this breakaway. Sastre marshals the affair and closes it down.
Acceleration now from Carlos Sastre right on his wheel. You can see Cadel Evans is seeing this is a very dangerous move, but also Denny Menchov too. This is a real climber, Carlos Sastre. He loves the Pyrenees. Menchov is coming up there. Will he counter, or will he be just
Evans is going up? This is a major counter-attack again. This is how climbers can accelerate. Cadel Evans is into third. Menchoff checking who has come back. On that, and here comes Frank Schleck launching it. The man that won an Alpe d'Huez in 2005, I think it was, as he breaks clear of the field. And now the reaction coming from Leonardo Pipoli. Kobo goes back, leaving his teammate to handle Schleck.
Well, Pipoli's come across the gap there. Frank Schleck started the day in 11th place overall. He was looking for 1 minute and 56 seconds, and this may well put a little bit of pressure on everybody else to try and chase him down. Schleck, let's not forget, was the winner of the Alpe d'Huez stage of the Tour de France a couple of years ago, and now he's putting pressure on everyone. But Carlos Sastre, Phil, really has to come up with the goods and do the goods for the job that his team did for him.
Good climb. Sometimes it's fairly easy, then it kicks at you, then it even goes down in places. But in the last few kilometres, it is vicious.
This is a move by Bernard Cole, Gerolsteiner. Those are the kind of moves that you need to watch. Ricardo Rico's seen it, and he's straight onto that immediately. And Christian van der Velde has said, now I'm going to go along because you guys are spending too much time watching each other.
Oh, that's a terrific move by Christian van der Velde. He has inherited the team leadership of a veteran, as he's come the team leader of Garmin-Chipotle. Cadel Evans has been hit a few times, and I'm not sure how good he is now.
Christian van der Velde is looking for only 38 seconds on Cadel Evans, and this is rather a clever move by the rider from the United States, because he knows the other guys in the group are going to watch each other. They can't allow Christian van der Velde to ride off the front like this, because he could actually create the surprise and snatch the jersey from under everybody's nose.
The face of Kim Kirken here, the maillot jaune. He keeps seeing reflect in his eyes as he looks down. Surely that's going to lift him to his limit to try and save the day. Carlos Sastre had tried, didn't have it for the moment. You can recover though and go again. Other riders lift you into the red zone. You have to drop out of it, recover, and then put yourself back in it. 10 kilometres to go, and Valverde, when your luck is out, Paul, your luck is out.
He's not having a great day. He's got a mechanical problem there. He can't get the chain back on. He's supported there by, it doesn't matter what country the support is from, he wants to help everybody in this bike race. There's a lot going on in the bike race here this afternoon. This looks like Kobo on the left-hand side. In front of him is Bernard Cole, and they're trying to ride across to that group of 3 riders.
Well, this is a do-or-day. These riders are riding like it is the final stage of the Tour de France. We've still got a week and a half to go. They'll earn the rest day tomorrow. We have a vicious session in the Alps. We've still got more of the Pyrenees after the rest day. As the riders now continue, Schleck has slowed down a little bit. He's looked at Pipoli and say, hey, well, if you're going to follow me, I'm not going to work. And Efrakim is there, Van der Velde is there. There's a group of 4. Here they're 5 now. We've got 5 riders up here now.
Well, the 5 riders
on the right.
I think Van der Velde is halfway across the gap at the moment, still trying to make it up to this big group of 5 riders. But behind, you can see the acceleration starting to come once again.
Well, they have blown those leading riders, there's some 20 riders into groups of 4 and 5. The Australian flag flies high for Cadel Evans here, now having to drag up a very select group, which now includes again Christian van der Velde and Denny Menchoff.
Well, Evans didn't panic, and he dare not panic in a situation like this, Phil. He just has to control, and the men he really wants to control are the men who are with him. As we see another move coming off the front here, and that is a serious acceleration coming from Vincenzo Nibali.
And Nibali, another sensation. We got the impression yesterday he was warming into the Pyrenees. He's in a Tour first-timer. A lot of people have talked about this young man doing something special. It may be. He's number 67. Pipoli alongside him. Well, and of course, there's teammates with riders in the front who won't help as well now.
Well, Kobo here, I think, has to sacrifice himself for Leonardo Pipoli, and that's why he has to sit on the front and set the tempo. Frank Schleck was quite happy to start the move, but he doesn't want to drag Leonardo Pipoli away to a stage victory. Pipoli is the smaller rider in 3rd position there. Bernard Cole is in 4th place, and I tell you what, this could end up being a good situation for Carlos Sastre if he's got the legs, Phil, to jump across to this group from the group behind once we get to the steeper part of the climb.
The lonely life of the maillot jaune of the Tour de France now, as Kim Kirken has got no team to help him, only his own legs. He's now got to fight and limit his losses. He will still hold a high place in the Tour de France tonight. It will not be the highest place. He's led the race for 4 days since he took the lead at Superbest when poor old Stefan Schumacher crashed in sight of the line for the first prize and possibly a new leader of the Tour.
Just sitting on the back there, a very nice move by the team AG2R. They've got Vladimir Efimkin, who rode very well yesterday and now is riding himself quite possibly up into a good high place in the overall classification. The way the race situation is at the moment, well, they are saying that it's 57 seconds back to the group of Cadel Evans, and Frank Schleck could be riding himself right up into the top 5.
Frank Schleck could be riding himself into the yellow jersey. He's a minute 56 off the race lead. He's now got over a minute on the yellow.
Kim Kirken has not given up this bike race, Phil, because he's riding himself back into it as Cadel Evans realizes Evans is gone.
Evans has had to go. The gap is getting too big. It's almost a minute to Cadel Evans now, as well by Frank Schleck. Remember that Cadel could fight back. This isn't the last day of the Tour de France. They will live to fight another day. How wounded is Cadel? Well, somebody just scolded him because he shot away.
Well, a lot of people have said the problem with Cadel Evans is he will not attack, but he's attacked here right now because he knows exactly what he's got to do. He's chasing Mikel Astroloza, and he's gone right across that gap. And the other guys, Phil, were just looking at him. If you want to win a Tour de France, you've got to ride with courage, you've got to ride with determination, and you have to make a move. This is the move, I think, that Cadel Evans has decided he needs to make.
Astroloza's caught his wheel here, but Cadel is not interested in Astroloza, who sits in 16th place, 2 minutes and 10 seconds behind Cadel overall. Christian van der Velde still got legs there to survive at the top.
Yeah, but they've done it to Kim Kirken. They've damned him again to 15 or 20 seconds. But you know, these accelerations Kim Kirken will not respond to. He will ride at his own pace and try and ride himself back into this race and keep himself high up in the overall classification. On the front, you have to say that Kobo for Team Saunier Duval Scott is doing a great job of work for his man. His man now sitting in second position, 179, is Leonardo Pipoli.
Well, as the pace is lifted again, somebody must have told them Cadel Evans had reacted, and he's coming up. They've lifted the pace here, Kobo. Schleck is still there. Let's see who we've got in this group now. It looks as though they've managed to tame Cadel's attack there. He's got back in the group with Menchov, and also Nibali has come up here. Sasta is here. So too is Christian van der Velde, just behind our camera. So that one didn't work, and here he goes. Oh, I thought he'd gone again there, Paul. Camera was too tight on him.
Well, there was an acceleration there coming from Ricardo Rico, and he was getting ready to respond to it. They realized how vicious the attacks are of Ricardo Rico. He's on the front, but he won't do too much, I don't think, Phil, to set the pace, because he's got a great situation here. He's got 2 riders in a leading group of 3, because you can see now Bernard Cole has been dropped, and also dropped his Efimkin, as Kobo is sacrificing himself now for the team. In second position behind him is Leonardo Pipoli. Now Sastra goes to the front. Will he try again?
Well, he won't try too hard. He can't now. He's handicapped. His teammate Frank Schleck is in front. The same for number 171. He's got his friend and teammate Pipoli in front. So he's not going to try and close up. Certainly not take Cadel Evans up there. Cadel here is just going to have to rely. Oh, well, look, the commentator's always wrong, because there's an attack by the Cobra, and it's the same old stunt. He rides on the bottom of the handlebars, just like Marco Pantani did, and he has that magical acceleration. But they're on him this time.
They're on him this time, but he's actually, strangely enough, he's almost exactly the same height for 2 centimeters, almost exactly the same weight per kilogram as Marco Pantani, and he actually carries a photograph of Marco Pantani in his racing jersey. So much does he idolize the man they called the Pirate.
Take his wheel. He's tried to put Pipoli into a lone win situation. Pipoli wanted to make an effort and come with him. They want to go together. And here comes Frank Schleck, the champion of Luxembourg, trying yet to finish a perfect day to Team CSC.
What a great day for Saunier Duval Scott. They are a team of the mountains. Kobo said, go on, I can't. I've got nothing left in my legs, my man. You just go on your own.
These guys have hit each other every opportunity. Sooner or later, somebody has got to go away from them. They can't keep reacting like this.
Well, the referee's dropping back in now because he feels that this is going to be a lone leader. Leonardo Pipoli, Phil, has been around for a long time, and Frank Schleck has come back up to join Juan Jose Kobo.
Schleck has got back to one of them. He was the most obvious candidate for the next Maillot Jaune, because he's only less than 2 minutes behind, and look at the gap. It's just on the 156 that indeed Frank Schleck was behind him at the start of the day. But it's very uncertain as to who will lead tonight.
But Leonardo People, he looks over his shoulder trying to judge whether or not his teammates got anything left, and now he knows that he's been joined by Frank Schleck, and he realizes that he now has got to go alone all the way up to the summit. However, there's still 5.5 kilometers to go.
6 riders riding like they're on a club cycling run, 2 by 2 as they climb the mountain. Cadel Evans 6 seconds behind the yellow jersey. He's now 2 minutes 4 seconds ahead of him, really, but it's still not good enough because Frank Schleck has got the race lead on the road just at the moment. It's been a tough day, this Paul. Menchov hasn't been that impressive. He's good, but he's not great today.
Well, I don't think you have to be great until you get to the last week of this spy race, because it's going to be a very difficult last week of racing once the race goes up into the Alps. Menchov comes to the front now and says, okay guys, well, I'm just going to set my own tempo, because that is probably what will be comfortable for me. You can see that Sastre is pretty much on the defensive here this afternoon, and I was expecting him to do the job, as the accelerations weren't good enough to get rid of Cadel Evans.
Cadel Evans at the moment is heading up that very select chase group. Here, further down the climb is Kim Kirk, and goodness knows what Alejandro Valverde is now after his flat tyre or whatever it was as well. Denny Menchos now trying to drag a little bit more energy out of that body at 3 kilometers to go. Kirkin still losing ground here. Frank Schleck is now behind the Italian tandem, and he's losing ground himself. He cannot contain the lifting of the pace here. Now he's gritting his teeth. He's just got to start dreaming of yellow and see if it inspires him, because he's close.
Well, the 2 riders from Sonia Duval Scott have got the acceleration coming up to the front here. Juan Jose Cobo is a great climber from Spain, and he's pacing his teammate behind him there, Leonardo Pipoli. Pipoli has been around for an awful long time. You know, he's coming up to 36 years of age. He'll be 37 at the end of September, but he's a man who's won stages at the top of mountains in nearly all of the major Great Grand Tours.
Well, Juan Jose Cobo is 27 years of age, and you know, he's only won 1 race, the Tour de Pays Basque last year, where he won a couple of stages. And now here he is taking Leonardo Pipoli, and I don't know whether he'll move over or whether Pipoli will say, no, you take it, you've done all the work. But we've seen this before in the Tour of Italy. Sony Deval, I think, have twice done a 1-2 using exactly the same tactics with Pipoli.
Well, the Basque flags are out this afternoon. The orange jerseys are here to support the men from the Euskaltel-Euskadi team. But the great thing about the fans here, Phil, is they will support and cheer every bike rider on the slopes of this mountain. Frank Schleck is wondering whether or not he can hold on to the advantage he's pulled back on Cadel Evans' group this afternoon to possibly take the jersey. It is going to be very, very close, because Evans has lost at 2:03, but only on the 2 riders from Sonia Duval, not necessarily on the man here in the red, white and blue, the champion of Luxembourg.
Well, the clocks are going to tell all in 2 kilometers time now. Denny Menchov is giving Cadel Evans a hand here. They're both on the defensive, remember. Sastre hasn't done much except follow. He's in 3rd place there. Christian van der Velde has been told by his team manager to use these riders and attack them as they approach the finish and steal a few seconds.
We're getting 1 kilometer to go, and I have to say, Phil, I really don't know which one is going to win.
The judges will never accept a dead heat. The boys can hold hands, but they'll still split the front wheel on the line. They'd never accept a dead heat, so they will have to decide what they do. But they've got that wonderful decision to make now. Here is Frank Schleck riding to a 3rd place finish, but is he riding to a yellow jersey as well? He rides in the colours here of the champion of his country, Luxembourg, winning that race just before the Tour de France started, a week in fact before. Further down the slope, the clock is counting there, but it's on the leader, flick of the arm from Menchov, saying to Cadel Evans, come on through and set the pace. They're trying to keep the rhythm. These are the only 2 riders who have worked.
Waiting his way back. And look at Pipoli looking over his shoulder.
I think Leonardo waits for him, you know.
He is waiting for him. I think he wants to drag him up here. I think he may well know that we're on the border of Spain here, and at 500 meters to go, he may well assist the younger rider to get the victory. And wouldn't the Spanish crowd go absolutely ballistic here in France?
Well, this is what they want, and I wonder. Certainly Cobo deserves it. He's done a lot of work today, unselfish work. He was preparing the road all the time for Leonardo Pipoli to win. Pipoli looking over, can't find him now. He's right alongside him as they start for the finishing line. This is going to be a 1-2 for Sonia Duval Scott. The question is, what is the order? The younger right, 140 is the gap. It could be Cadel Evans is looking good, but as these 2 race for the line, it is still which one is going to win.
Look at Pipoli's face here. He's been here many, many times before. Juan Jose Cobo is just happy to be in the company of this little Italian climber. They're making the final swing. 100 meters to go. Who's it going to be?
Well, Pipoli wants it. Cobo wants it. Are they going to have a free-for-all sprint? Sometimes the management says you fight it out yourself and whoever wins, wins. But there we are. He's as happy as Pipoli. Leonardo Pipoli wins a terrific stage of the Tour de France, and Juan Jose Cobo of Spain salutes his people in second place. The clock will start, though, when this man hits the line. Who will be the yellow jersey, Frank Schleck or Cadel Evans?
Well, what's important now is to watch the time when Frank Schleck stops the clock, because it doesn't matter how far behind those two guys who finished first and second are. It's whether or not he's more than 1 minute and 50 seconds ahead of Cadel Evans, and I got that at 25 or 26 seconds.
Well, now this is Bernard Cole coming up. He's been threatening to do a great ride ever since he ran over the team leader, Schleck, I can't think of his name anymore.
Cole.
Schumacher, down when he ran over him in the crash at Superbest. We're watching the clock now to see. He's got to finish 1:51 ahead of Cadel, right?
I didn't get the exact time that Frank Schleck crossed the line. It was either 25 or 26. Well, we're looking at 2:16, 2:17 is the time that Cadel Evans has to finish inside of if he wants to get himself the yellow jersey at the end of the stage. It's a long climb up there. You can see the clock telling us at around about 1 minute and 13 on the finishing line. And you can see Van der Velde has come to the front. He's trying to lift the pace a fraction now as he gets towards the line. The magic number, and I've only got it 2 seconds either way because we kind of missed the crossing of the line of Frank Schleck. It's between 2:15 and 2:17, but it's going to be very, very close at 400 meters to go.
Now, just on this last 350 meters, can Christian Van der Velde even steal a couple of seconds for himself? He could be second or third overall still. Cadel Evans is chasing him down. We're looking at 2:16. If it's outside that, then Evans has lost the yellow to Frank Schleck. It is going to be close, and I think it's going to be very close. And here comes Rico. Rico finishing it off for Sony Duval Scott as well. 2:03 there for Efekim on the line, so he will be in 5th place on the day. Well, now, what is happening? It's going to be, I think, Schleck who will be the leader, but I don't know. Oh, goodness, it's 2:16. We'll leave it to the timekeepers. It's close.
It's extreme.
We could have 2 riders tonight equal on time.
That's quite possible, you know, because I couldn't quite make out whether it was 2:15 or 2:17 for Frank Schleck, and that is very close indeed. We'll have to wait for the
Either way, I
official
don't
results.
think the Tour de France has won today.
Well, it is certainly not won today. It's been lost for this man, though, Kim Kirken, who's worn that yellow jersey with great pride, but he has not given up either, Phil. He's still riding himself, trying to keep himself high in the overall classification. Hats off to Christian Van der Velde. That was a pretty impressive acceleration to the top of that climb.
He tried to do what Matt White had told him, hit him on the run-in and get a few seconds. It didn't work, but he's still a top 3 contender tonight, I'm sure of that.
If it hadn't been for Christian Van der Velde and the acceleration by Ricardo Rico, well, there may well have been a couple of seconds there that would have given the lead to Frank Schleck. We're still going to have to wait for that.
Well, it's been a long, lonely ride for Kim Kirken. He looked as though he'd had a good climb on the Tourmalet. They hurt him on the way down. He was dangling at the tail of the chase. And once onto the climb of the Otakam, he blew very early on. And it's cost him quite a lot of lead. It's not a life-destroying lead. He might come back. He's going to be strong. There's a lot more difficult days to come in the Tour de France.
Vincenzo Nibali coming in. The hierarchy of the Tour de France has been formed for the first time in this year's race as he crosses the line around about 3:40 in arrears, and that's not a bad ride by him.
It's a great ride by the young Italian in his first Tour de France. Sammy Sanchez also coming up here now, Mikel Astolosa coming up, he's gritting his teeth here. He also will stay a high flyer in the Tour de France tonight. This has been a vicious race up the mountain, one like we never really expected to see. They've ridden this stage like it was a one-day race. They've blown each other apart. This is the yellow jersey now coming up to the line. The clock shows you 4:19. The winners have been in for 4¼ minutes. And as he hits the line now, 4:18. Rumour is spreading that Cadel Evans is the next leader of the team. If you remember, the Sony Duval Scott cycling team are first and second there. As Valverde now comes into the line, Paul, he's lost 5 minutes, almost 6 minutes there, alongside him, Koeniger.
That's a huge chunk of time, but look at the number of people who have come to watch this bike race here, Phil. I don't think I've ever seen so many camping cars.
Enormous, right across the top there. There's the two today, a Sony Duval Scott tandem. And Kobo didn't quite go past his team leader there, Peepily. But it would have been nice if he had done, because half of the crowd here are Spanish. Even the gendarmes are smiling there.
Well, this is Andy Schleck.
Andy Schleck coming home here. The clock says 8:47. Quick calculation. I think Rico will be the next man in the white jersey. It's been a great day out, hasn't it, for the Sony Duval Scott team?
It's been a phenomenal couple of days, really, for Sony Duval Scott. I tell you what, amazing the number of people have turned out to witness what has been a magical battle here, I think, Phil. Just coming up, De Gregorio.
Well,
he was
good
the man.
ride.
He hoped to do it for France today on the national holiday. And it just goes to show how tough this climb is.
He lost nearly 10 minutes, but that's all right. This is Dario Cioni coming in now. He also was there right till the bitter end, but once the last climb started, he fell back just a little bit. Christophe Lemaivel as well. All the boys are going to come in for a long time. What's the situation? Have you worked it out on the young jerseys, Paul?
I'm pretty sure, in fact, that the new leader in the white jersey competition will be Ricardo Rico. Yeah. He was looking for just 37 seconds at the start of the day on Andy Schleck. Maxime Montfort, he was looking for 26 seconds and only a few seconds on Roman Kreuziger. There was a big gap between him and any of the other guys in that competition.
They've all lost minutes to him today, so he's the next white jersey. The jersey he won in this year's Giro d'Italia by cycling. Sony Duval Scott, rather. Frank Schleck in third place at 28 in the Encol, riding very, very impressively in fourth at 1:06. Vladimir Efenkin of Russia at 2:05 in fifth. Rico is in sixth, and a new white jersey leader in the Tour de France, Carlos Sastre, seventh. They're all the same time, these. Important to note. Cadel Evans in eighth, Menchoff ninth, and Christian van der Velde in 10th place. Terrific ride. Further down, Ball of World have found themselves a new climber here in Moises Duenas. He finished in 11th place at 2:27. The oldest man in the race, Gruber, brilliant in 12th. Nibali in 13th. Further down the list, there's some more names for you. Damiano Cunego, the important one. He loses 5:51. Alejandro Valverde loses 5:52 today. Gone is their chances of winning the Tour de France. And that is the stage result, a 1-2 for the Sony Duval Scott team. He beats his teammate Kobo. Schleck comes in 28 seconds later, Cole at 1:06, and Vladimir Efimkin riding superbly this year in 5th place. Further down, Rico makes a 1-2-3 for Scott in the first 6. Sastre is 7th, Cadel Evans is 8th, and Christian van der Velde inspired himself to a 10th place finish today. These guys all getting the same time, but Moises lost a little bit of time for Bolo World. Stefan Guber, oldest man in the race, at 38 12th. Kim Kirken loses his yellow jersey. He finishes 15th, but loses 4 minutes and 19 seconds to the winner. Sam Sanchez also lost big time today. Cunego lost 5:51. Valverde lost 5:52, and that is telling. Well, let's go and look at this now. Cadel Evans salutes the crowd. I think he clearly, yes, he wanted this race leader's jersey. He come as the big favourite. He crashed yesterday. He thought, my God, I've lost the Tour de France. Now he's got it on. He becomes, in fact, only the 5th cyclist ever from Australia, behind Phil Anderson, Stuart O'Grady, Brad McGee, Robin McEwen, and now he's a 6th cyclist, isn't he? Cadel Evans gets yellow.
Yeah, a very emotional day, I think, for Cadel, because especially after the crash of yesterday, Phil, he didn't know how his body was going to react at all here this afternoon, and it was an incredible battle. But it's a start, I think, of many battles to come before he extends that lead of 1 second over Frank Schleck.
Well, let's have a look at the Michelob Ultra overall standings. Cadel Evans actually is the 5th cyclist to get yellow for Australia. Frank Schleck is 2nd at 1 second. Thank heavens Christian van der Velde made a race for the line. He actually saved the day for Cadel Evans there. Van der Velde holds 3rd, is closer now. He was at 44 seconds. He's at 38 on Cadel. Bernard Cole riding brilliantly in 4th, and Denny Menchoff there in 5th. Looking further down, Sastre's up tonight, though, despite all. He's in 6th at 1:28. Kirken drops to 7th, 1:56. The same gap, funnily enough, as Schleck was behind him at the start of the day. That's amazing. Kobo is 8th. Rico is now 9th in this race and says he's not interested in winning it. And Vladimir Taljevic is up there as well. That Efekim, rather, is up there. Further down, the 11th Zatalosa, 12th Nibali, 13th Sastre. Valverde plunges to 19th. But look over there at the times. They're way out off the list now. As we switch to Damiano Cunego, 16th, 5:37 behind. Pereiro over 6 minutes. Time gaps are opening. but the way this race is going, these time gaps are not insurmountable. New leader tonight in the green jersey competition, because Kim Kirken lost this as well. It went very early on in the day to Oscar Freire.
Well, not an easy way to get points, especially on a mountain stage for a sprinter, but Oscar Freire looked for the breakaway here this afternoon, got into a breakaway of 24, got himself points, and when it split down to 7 riders, he was still attentive and went clear again to get himself another number of points, and that's why he's now leading the green jersey points competition.